this special call city council meeting to order. At this time, can we have roll call?
Carlson.
Here.
Hurtak. Clendenin. Henderson.
Present.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
We have physical quorum.
All right. Councilmember Vieira will be just a few minutes late. Councilmember Clendenin will not be at today's meeting. I believe he submitted a memo. Mr. Shelby and Councilmember Hurtak is here. Mr. Shelby, do you want to go over?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the City Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Today is a special call workshop, and public comment this morning will be limited to the subject of the special call workshop. Members of the public may address City Council once for 3 minutes after presentations have been made. After each presentation on each subject, items 1, 2, or 3, there will be an opportunity for the public to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's no general public comment. There'll be public comment after each item, meaning you will have 3 opportunities to speak at public comment after each item is presented. There was a request by the Chief of Staff for item number 3 to go first because there is a police funeral. As you can see, some of the chief and others are dressed in their full uniform for that. So we're going to start with item number 3. Yes, sir. Chief Burkhall, come on up.
Good morning, Council, and yes, thank you for acknowledging that Detective Ray Estevez's funeral is today. He was a great man, died too soon, was our age. So we'll be there honoring him later this morning. And I'm here today with my team, Deputy Chief Kate, Deputy Chief Owen, the Director of Logistics and Asset Management, Adriana Colina, and the Director of Contract Administration, Richard Mutterbuck. And if it's not obvious already, we work together as a team, both TPD, LAM, and CAD, and other city departments to ensure that we have the facilities that we need for our conditions, and of course to comply with our law enforcement standards. Part of that we presented earlier this month is having up-to-date forensic technology and storage and processing areas. The Howard Avenue Annex will be just that. We are a premier law enforcement agency. We're the member of the Major City Chiefs Association, a member of the Police Executive Research Forum, and among many other agencies. And a lot of those agencies look to us for best practices. We went to our sister cities of Orlando and St. Pete and gleaned a lot of best practices from them in this project that we're proposing. We vacated the old impound lot on 34th Street to make way for solid waste in their plan, and this is part of the reason that we're in this situation. However, we still needed upgraded facilities. So I will bring up Adriana Colina first, and then Richard Mutterbuck, and then Deputy Chief Kate for the presentation.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Council. Adri Colina, Director of Logistics and Asset Management. As Chief Burkhall mentioned, we're here today to, in response to Council's motion regarding a chronology of what has occurred regarding the 5005 North Howard and 5112 Albany site from 21 to now. And we do have the timeline, but I wanted to share with you, I listened to the discussion that occurred as you made that motion. And I heard you wondered why multiple departments were involved in this, and in addition to the timeline. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to really explain the need for the partnership and the role each one plays. Particularly my department, Logistics and Asset Management, it's comprised of 2 divisions. One is fleet maintenance, and that is for the acquisition, maintenance, repair, and disposition of all city vehicles, including police and fire, with the exception of specialized units for fire. They purchase their own ladder trucks, engines, ambulances, etc., but we work on them all. And then on the facilities side of the house, we are responsible for ensuring all city employees, again, including police and fire, have safe, efficient, comfortable working environments, and in the fire station's case, where they live. So for us, facilities, facilitate, by definition, just means to help forward an action or a process. So in this, we were partners with the police department. In this case, They were our customers. And then subsequently with the contract administration department, making sure we use the right contracts, use the right mechanism to house our police units and those business units best. As we began the journey, and I'll put on the Elmo, and forgive me, this is my first time using the Elmo, so I'm hoping it all comes clearly. It's important to the city of Tampa that we partner
Zoom
with
out.
city council. Oh, thank you, chief. Other way. Perfect. So in the spirit of transparency, it's important that we collaborate and communicate with council and with the public on our projects. We began this journey, as Chief Burkall mentioned, in May, when we knew the police department was being displaced from their 34th Street site, which was an impound lot, but I'd also like to share with you, with those vehicles also comes evidence. And so they were saving and storing evidence there. In good practice, due diligence, we visited the city of St. Pete, also in May of 2021, to see what they were doing. They had recently built a new station, and we were looking for best practices. We saw they co-located. Well, they actually contract out the towing and the storing of the vehicles, but they co-locate all the evidence and the forensics in one space. They had modernized equipment on storing that evidence, easy accessibility, and protecting the integrity of that evidence. So we came to council and we said, the real estate department has identified space on Howard Avenue that we think will work for the city of Tampa Police Department's needs. We came to you on May 20 of 21, asking your permission and also sharing with you our intent to use this site for the police department and for those business unit spaces. In fact, the memo that was uploaded into SIRE said, in order to relocate the police impound lot and other police facilities. Thankfully, you unanimously voted to allow us to move forward and to enter into a contract with the owner of that property at the time. We also knew that the property needed to be rezoned. It was zoned RS50. We needed it to be commercial intensive to allow for the intended use. At the time, I actually met with the neighborhood association president. It was Wellswood Civic Association. I met with Tina Hurlis, who was the president at the time. I walked the site with her. I shared with her our intent, what we were looking to locate there. They were very supportive of it. In fact, Chairman Maniscalco was chairman at the time, and they sent a letter of support for the project. And I came before council on December 9th of 2021. It was the first reading to rezone the property. And I also referenced the letter of support that was sent by the Wellswood Civic Association. I also shared the intent for the site. On January 13, 2022, we had the second reading to rezone the property, and thankfully, it was again unanimously voted upon.
Just a moment.
Yes.
What's on the overhead, can we have it put on our screens here instead of the operating budget workshop? There we go, perfect. Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I also want to share with you that although it wasn't part of council vote, but I think it's important for us to really appreciate the journey that we have taken. When we began the journey, Brian Dugan was police chief. In September of 21, of course, he retired, and Ruben Delgado took over as interim chief. And many leaders always come with good ideas and new vision, and he came with the understanding of what we saw at the St. Pete Police Department. And he said, it just makes good sense for us to really have all of this together at one site. Forensics, evidence, they all work together, and it's best practice to have them together. So we work closely with our stakeholders, and in picking back up on the timeline, on December 7th, no, you got the letter from Ms. Hurlis. On December 23rd, the City of Tampa project team, which included the police department, contract admin, and logistics and asset management facilities, compiled the RFQ design criteria package that we intended to submit for advertising. And so that was where we put in all these best practices and ideas of what we wanted for this new site. On January 26th of 2022, Ruth Kate, who was actually the captain at the time at the police department, was assigned to the project. On January 28th of 2022, the city of Tampa closed on the purchase for the property from Frank Agliano, president of Gator of Florida, Inc., for $2.6 million. And I would like to remind everyone of that time period we were in. It was 2021 and 2022, just getting out of the pandemic, and unbeknownst to us, about to face supply chain nightmares, a huge rise in construction costs, and inflation. In fact, new construction in Florida was up 40%, while nationwide it was only 13%. And the city of Tampa was not exempt from those rises and those increases. So continuing on the timeline, on October 20th of 2022, the city of Tampa, the city council approved the design build contract that we had selected. The RFQ was included in the packet given to council, and that was for $2.8 million for the design build contract at the time. And included in that packet, like I said, was the RFQ, and in there, in section 2.02, it says, "The budget to execute and complete the approved future program shall be determined as part of the design and pre-construction efforts." Again, we were in the beginning of our journey. And so at that point, the RFQ was issued by the CAD department, and I'd like to turn it over now to keep us along that journey to the director of CAD, Mr. Richard Mutterback.
Thank you, Adri. Good morning, council. I want to back up just a little bit. As Adri stated, February, and just as a brief intro, I'm going to try to simplify a lot of details and information. Everybody knows there's a lot that goes into these projects, from concept through design, construction, and the reality. So I'm going to try to highlight some of the points that we're all aware of, but just so that the public, just as a refresher for us and the public. So February the 9th, as she stated, the RFQ was advertised, stating a current funding of $5.3 million with additional programming, planning, and estimating of costs for a possible future RFQ. Part of that design criteria package, I want to highlight some of the scope from out of that. Page 2 of 12 of that design criteria package references future programming, and I'm going to just highlight that. So the initial program was, on that second paragraph there, remodeling of the existing single-story, 38,000 square foot warehouse to accommodate and relocate the entire TPD's impound, evidence control, and forensic unit from 34th Street. And then as part of this criteria package, we identified a future program that could include the remodeling of existing story to accommodate, relocate, and integrate the remainder of TPD's evidence control section and forensic unit currently located at the downtown headquarters. That was the direction that the firms were given there. On page 6, yes, page 6 of 12, I want to, section 2.02 there, initial and current budget of $5.3 million, and the budget to execute and complete the approved future program shall be determined as part of the design and pre-construction efforts, with the possibility of becoming a subsequent and separate request for RFQ. And then as mentioned, we got to October, and that initial agreement was brought before council, and passed 7-0. And so Jay Kokalaka, began their journey of the design. In June of 2023, programming, concept design, and cost estimation completed and was sent to the city for review. And that's when discussions began with all the departments, our customers, TPD, LAM, and and the firm, because this is when we first saw the actual numbers of what the entire thing would be, June of 2023. Concurrently, while we were having these discussions and reviewing it, you know, I had just came on with the city in June of that year, and between myself and legal department and Brad Baird and my team, we were working on this executive order 2023-7, and after a few, and then we later presented it to the public and to council once we had that adopted, and it was specifically to combat things that we had seen over the past few years of, you know, with rising costs and that kind of thing with some of these projects. So on November 28th of 2023, that executive order with its administrative procedures was executed. Based on programming, concept design, and cost estimate, this project would invoke a cardinal change, which, under section 5.2, where if the cost of a project was to increase by more than twice the budgeted amount or engineer's estimate advertised. Now I just want to remind the public those cardinal changes. Under section 5.0, we said that a new CCNA selection or some other competitive selection process consistent with state law would occur if there were cardinal or material changes to the scope of a project after issuance of that design criteria package. And this particular, and 5.2, if it increases more than twice. So, continuing our discussion with staff and the departments and the administration, you know, we came to the conclusion in January of this year that we would take this project from a design build project to a design bid build, so that we'd be following these administrative procedures outlined in that order. And there was a lot of thought that went into this because this project was there was a lot of money already spent on the design, and we were between 60 and 90% complete with those designs. So the thought to go from design build to design bid build would preserve all that work that had already been put in, and we wouldn't be starting over from scratch. And then later, so from January, when we came up with that decision, through about April, we were having a lot of discussions with the firm, because obviously the firm, you know, taking a change in project delivery and basically amending their contract from the entire design build to now only the design to be amended to make biddable documents was a potential big loss for them. So there was a lot of discussions between us and the firm. So once we got all that cleared out, we started having individual briefings with all the council members, and we were about ready to give our grade 8 presentation, which this would be a part of. And then this was going to be coming to you several times over the next few months, including, you know, as part of the CIP budget review, the amendment that's going to be coming before you this Thursday, and then eventually a new contract with a builder, whoever is to be awarded that new contract. And then like I said, Thursday we'll be bringing an amendment for the firm Kokalakis to go from a design build project, take those design plans, and now make them biddable documents. There's a lot of work that goes into that because now they're not the builder, so they have to make sure every spec and detail is in there. They also have to clean those documents up, because now these are going out to the public, and these are secure facilities. So there's certain things that need to be done to prepare the documents in that regard as well. And now I will let Deputy Chief Kate speak on behalf of TPD. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
Just a few final thoughts. So we, as Chief Burkhall stated, we are a premier law enforcement agency. We are a professional agency, and we are currently going through the accreditation process. There are 14 standards or articles that specifically address forensics and evidence. Each standard has as many as 5 to 25 articles that we must be in compliance with. They are anything from how evidence is collected, processed, stored, and that has evolved over the years. And the perfect example that I can give you is DNA. So we talked about, I'm going to the packaging. I want to put that was an example of what we have and what Orlando has. So DNA is a perfect example. Technology that is now available simply did not exist when I first joined the police department. We now send out evidence to be tested that we've collected years ago. But this evidence has to be stored correctly. It needs to be temperature controlled, humidity controlled, to make sure that the viability is still there when it's time to be used in court. Like Chief Burkhall said, our city is growing. And even with the best crime prevention measures that we have, there's still going to be some crime. We owe it to the victims to have closure for them and to prosecute these cases correctly and prevent dangerous offenders from further committing more crimes. We talked about the evidence storage and what it currently looks like. Even with storing the evidence, the best practices that we currently have, we store it by size. We can do better. We can store it now and categorize it where the narcotics are with the narcotics just with the drugs. Where homicide evidence is just with homicide. Where sex crimes is just with sex crimes. That's what we're looking to do. We want to be, officers come into our facilities, they have to test their narcotics, they have to weigh them separately, they have to separate a small amount to go to the lab to be tested, and they have to put larger amounts together to be stored. We don't want to commingle evidence with other evidence. At the old Howard Avenue, at the old 34th Street lot, we also talked about how we impounded cars there, but we also processed evidence there. We had bays where the cars were processed for homicides. They were not air conditioned. Now at the Howard Avenue facility, they will be air conditioned. This is just better work conditions for our employees and the overall collection process and cases. Starting in May of this year, I began to meet with council members individually, and Richard Mutterback also joined me, and we explained the need. This is not a want. This is something that we desperately need. And then on June 27th, I presented to council during our grade 8 presentation that the cost would probably be $40 million for this facility. Councilman Carlson, I think you understood that this is one of those necessities that was not a want. I remember him saying that specifically to me. On August 5th, Chief Burkhall and I came back and we presented the project again. Council agreed this is a priority for TPD. In closing, I would just like to say that our plans are almost 100% complete, and we can put this out to bid and start building right away. This is also the best outcome for the community, as we currently store evidence in multiple locations, and we previously discussed that. Now, community members will only have to go to one location to claim their property or to pick up evidence, thus saving time and manpower and expenses for everyone. This same goes for our officers. If they have a subpoena for court, they have to look up where the evidence is located and go to multiple locations to retrieve it before going to court. So I thank you for your time. I know that you understand how important this is to the police department, and that's it.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you. This was my motion, and I appreciate the detailed report, and I just wanted to give my sympathies to the entire police department over the loss of the officer. So I understand why we all need to go, why you all needed to take care of this. And so the issue to me was not at all what this is. Has nothing to do with the fact of like what department it is. The issue was, and it was clearly shown in your timeline, other police facilities, future programming. Never does it say forensics building. Never in the description of the capital improvement project does it say forensics until 2025. So I'm just making some comments here. It says the first year was purpose of relocating the TPD impound lot. The second was purpose of relocating various TPD offices. Next was relocating various TPD offices. This is all from the CIP. And I understand that further in documents, you may have said this is for a forensics building, but the public looking at CIP documents would have no idea that this was a forensics building. And because of what we have approved in the past, where we've ended up spending a ton more money on something that we didn't even know about, this falls under that category. This is simply, and this year alone, it says relocating the TPD impound lot and several TPD units. It never talks about what the actual units are. And that is what I believe council has the issue with. Why? And you clearly showed it in your timeline. You didn't and once mention forensics. And so and I would have had to, or each one of us would have had to read into each RFQ to figure that out. So I think what we're looking at today is not this particular project, but overall, how do we make this clearer for both the public and council so that by the time, I mean, you said very clearly in your timeline and what you showed today that May 2024 was the first time it was publicly called forensics. When you came to us, I think all of us heard it, and we see the need 100%. I said the same thing to you. This is not a want, this is a need. But the fact that May 2024 was the first time it was called a forensics is the issue, for me at least. And again, for the public to know what we're spending money on. Future programming is not descriptive enough for the public to understand what's coming, especially when it's something like TPD. I don't know any member of the public that would have a problem with new forensics building. It's very important. We need to be able to prosecute people who commit crimes. But that's not the issue. The issue is future programming. And how many other of the 150 CIP projects have future programming in them? Or, relocating offices. And that's the issue. It's too vague, and we need to find a way as council and administration to make this more specific.
Yeah, I modified Councilmember Hurtak's motion, when it was a week or two ago, to ask specifically that it be facilities and budget staff rather than TPD, so that it wouldn't politicize it. This really is an issue not about, as Chief Kate said, it's not about whether we need this or not. It's about the project management of it. Mr. Motorbach came in partway through this process, and I know he's worked hard to clean up that department. My problem with the city is the city just seems to be terrible at project management, and I don't know why we keep having these projects that go over budget, but we have Hannah Avenue that went grossly over budget. When you add everything together, 220 million at the very least, 121 from 100 million for two buildings to 121 plus up to 220 million. We have Fair Oaks that went from 5 million. The mayor originally proposed 375,000, went to 5 million. At our proposal, then went to 40 million plus interest is 80 million. And then we have the Riverwalk that has gone double, triple budget. We do have the safeguard end that we propose, and the mayor agreed in her executive order to break the CCNA loophole that the city had found before and had an avenue to go around and try to get another bid. But we have at least 4 projects now that have gone way over budget. When I talk to other governments, they don't experience the same kind of overages that we do. And what I think would be a reasonable conversation is to figure out what is it that we can do in stages. Same thing with Fair Oaks. Nobody's against what's going at Fair Oaks, but if you don't have the money, you do it in stages. With the CRA, which we control as a CRA board, we decided instead of trying to borrow money or use some expensive mechanism, we're re-bricking Ybor block by block. And when the money comes in, we'll pay go and continue with the blocks. It seems like there's a process that you would go through to plan this that doesn't cost so much. And I haven't seen any presentation that shows that all of the 40 million or whatever is justified, or that we need it all right now. I 100% support the police. I don't support the overages that the project managers inside the city keep coming back with. I don't know why they don't seem to be disciplined by money. If this was in the private sector, we wouldn't go to the CFO and say, oh, we need another $1 million or we need another $5 million. If it was the private sector, we say, we don't have another $5 million. We can't spend that. And so I'd like to see the $20 million version, the $25 million version, the $30 million version, the $40 million version. Because the $40 million version sounds like Hannah Avenue or Fair Oaks or the Riverwalk all over again, that we're just going to spend whatever we want to spend. And I hope that the city will fix its project management and bring in people who know how to manage budgets the same way the private sector does. Thank you.
Councilman Moran.
You know, I know I met with Chief Kate, and if my memory serves me correct, she was very explicit on making the explanation all about the process that she taught today. I don't know what she did with others, but when I met with her, she explained to me about the problem they had in forensics, and I think I asked her, I know I watch CSI every weekend, and joking around I said that, of course, but we cannot be a second-hand department unless you have a first-hand going forward. In other words, in this world of competitiveness, in this world where guns are everywhere, you don't even have to have a permit. All you got to do is break into a car that's got one, because they shouldn't have them either. They should get as much punishment as the one who stole the gun. Along with those same things, she was very explicit on exactly what she talked about today. And so am I surprised? The amount of surprise. But let me tell you one thing that I heard today. Again, we're going to interest. And again, I'm going to ask the audience, if you bought a car, do you say I paid $30,000 for the car, or you paid $60,000 with interest? When you buy a house, do you say you bought a house for $400,000 or $750,000 with interest? No one does that. Maybe what we should do is be the standard bearer and say, you know, we're paying this for it, but this is the total cost of the project. I'm fine with that. Maybe that should be so eye-awakening for all of us in this city. We got some taxes coming up that are going to be voted on. Let's see how many of us really vote for the public and how many of us vote for special interest. And that thing, to start with that tax, first of all, in the beginning of that tax, what we're getting back is what we're putting in is a lot of money. We're getting a certain percentage of our population compared to others. 3 entities are with us is 4, and we're being shortchanged because it's a population on how much you create of that tax. That's number one. So I'm saying you got to be vigilant of what's going on. You got to be prepared to understand what's coming on, and we must have all the information. The council is right. All the information of what's going on. That was not clearly explained. I caught on maybe. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, when you came to my office and talked to me, you told me exactly what it was. Did I have all the figures? No. But anyone knows that if you're building an airside for $750 million 4 years ago, and today is $1.2 billion, it's the same thing everywhere. Do I like it? No. When you buy a gallon of milk today, when I was a kid, it was 25 cents. But we had a lot of cows then. Now population is taking over, so it's rising in milk. All these things are happening. A gallon of milk today is half an hour's pay to 90% of our population. The cheapest I've seen it is $4.52. The highest I've seen it, no, that's the highest I've seen it, excuse me. The cheapest I've seen it is $2.53. One is a P and the other one's a W. You can figure that out for yourself.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I just want to clarify, terrible at project management is not the view of probably every single council member up here. I do not see it that way, and I just want to say that. I know you all work very hard on behalf of the city, and I appreciate your efforts. One of the things that I do see is, you know, I see people standing before me that were not here when this project came to life in the very beginning. So wording, verbiage changes, needs change, so I can see why that also took place. Including forensics, even up to date, is interesting to me because that when I looked at it, that probably fell under future programming or future units. So wording is not what's at play here. It's really, for me, what do we need? Do we need everything housed in one location? Yes, we do. How much does it cost? It costs $40 million. That's what's being presented to us now. I don't feel like anyone's hiding anything or that is terrible program management. We have new people in place. We have a new chief that took over. We have a contract administrator that's taken over. We're getting it right. You all have been transparent, and I appreciate that. I think it is our responsibility, now that we do have all of this information, to say, how do we move forward? There have been projects in the past where the communication hasn't been clear, but you're all standing before us, not to be politicized, but to ensure that we understand how great this need is. So I appreciate you being present, even in light of the fact that you have a very important funeral to go to today, because I understand the importance of, why our police need what they need and why it's in the community's best interest that we have what you're asking for us. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank y'all. By the way, I got in late. What time is y'all's funeral at?
We need to leave in about 10 minutes.
Okay, well then, I'll just abbreviate my remarks. No, so I think there's two sides to this, and we can go with both one way or another, which is Councilwoman Hurtak is talking about a process that she feels needs to be further embraced for transparency. I don't think anybody would oppose that, but I think the larger issue is this is something that we have to get done in today's budget 110%. I feel that by having y'all here, especially when you have to leave for a funeral, it's not for politics' sake, it's because you have contract management, and then it's a TPD project, and it's something that is very important. As an attorney, I don't do criminal law, I never have, I have no interest in it, but in civil litigation, preservation of evidence is everything. Whenever I get a case, I go, please preserve this, and I send a big 2-long-page list on preservation, and if they don't preserve it and it becomes a disputed issue in the case, then they're in trouble. But they're in trouble because they have to pay money, or lose money, whatever side you're on. When you guys lose things, or when evidence gets spoiled, when there's spoliation of evidence, guess what happens? Injustice in the criminal justice system. So that's why I think this is something that's very, very important. So y'all's presence here, I think, is very well taken. So this is going to pass, I think, 7-0. Again, Councilwoman Hurtak is talking about a process that I'm sure that we can all improve on for transparency, et cetera. But this is something that I believe will pass 7-0 on this. So that's all. Abbreviated remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had a couple of questions. Is this going to be a completely bonded project?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and, pending the CIT renewal, would this be eligible to be paid for with CIT funding, at least partially? Because I know when the CIT was introduced in the 90s, I think it went to police substations and other, public safety items. Would this be eligible for that if we wanted to tap into that?
I'm Mike Perry, Budget Officer. Most of the project will be paid for by the bonds. It's the design and the construction. We had some initial property acquisition that we used utility tax for very early in the project. So probably 90 to 95% of the project will be debt financed. Now, as far as whether or not this will be paid for by the potential community investment tax, I think a lot of that's going to be depending on what the attorneys tell us we can do, and the timing of the project. I do believe Richard said you're coming to council this coming Thursday for an amendment. And so once that amendment is done, then what's the design? How long will we finish up the design?
That's for to finish up the biddable documents, and they're nearly 100% right now.
Okay, and then we have to design that. And so it doesn't sound like the timing will be good enough to use pay-go from the community investment tax, but potentially if we issue debt, some of that can be securitized and repaid for by the CIT renewal.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Again, I really wish people wouldn't get sidetracked with this project. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do we make the descriptions more specific? So I'm going to ask Mr. Mutterback to come up. What can we do to make sure that project descriptions in the capital improvement project no longer say other facilities or future programming? How do we make sure that these are specific? Well,
first of all, Richard Mutterback again. I mean, we try to be specific in the project title. When you get into scope, and a lot of that scope, especially when you have a project that has programming built in, other is all you can really say, because you have to get in, if there's no feasibility study or no master plan, no assessments done prior to, that's baked into as part of the design. So we don't, those other facilities or other options, it's kind of like, what can we do with this site? This is like in this case, this was an existing site, an existing building. So, you know, what was available? What could we fit in there? And until they get in there with the design, exactly like that would be the example here. I understand and the need for more, and it's in there, as far as in the design criteria package, we specifically brought out evidence, but I understand everybody doesn't want to go to page 2 of the design criteria package.
Well, and that's kind of my point, is that in FY '22, you say it's simply an impound lot. Then later in FY '22, in the scope of services, it clearly says forensics building. So my question is, why in 2023 it wasn't changed to impound facility, forensics, and other offices? If we knew it was going to be such a big part, it wasn't just other offices, it wasn't just other, even in, as far as we get to 2025, it's just and offices. If forensics, and this is specifically a question for Mr. Mutterback, because again, I don't want to cloud it with what department it is. This is your domain, and you need, between you and Ms. Colina, to tell us how we and the public can tell from these specific documents. Otherwise, I'm happy to sit here and question every single 150 CIP projects. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to go through every single description and say, what do you mean by offices? What do you mean by other? But that's not a good use of anyone's time.
I understand. I'm sorry, may I?
Yeah, that's really what I'm asking. How do we do this in the future so that I'm not still reading and offices when you mean forensics?
Okay, and just for a little bit of clarification and something that we're trying to, broaden within the city, and contract administration has no projects. We have no budget, we do no projects. We are a support department, and TPD is our customer. So we work for them, and so when they come to us with a project and a need, then we help them facilitate that project or need. And then we're the arm to get that out to the public through RFQ, through the procurement process, and then through design. But, she stepped up to the podium and you refer to it as my project. We don't have projects.
Yeah, I understand. It's actually Ms. Colina's project because it's under logistics and asset management. So I guess I'll ask her that question. So Ms. Colina, how do we do this in the future so that we make these descriptions more specific?
So I'm happy to answer the question. It's under my department because ultimately we will inherit it, meaning we will have to maintain and repair, right? But we do have to collaborate with the other departments. That's how we get there. Again, as Mr. Mutterback stated, police is our customer. Similar to if you're remodeling your house or building a new home, you're going to partner with the general contractor and probably an architect and some others. So it's not just one person, but we need to make sure that we're delivering to you what you want in the end. So that collaboration needs to occur. And I will also say, I think in the spirit of transparency, which we are very intentional about, is kind of what has us in this conversation, because when you start a design, our customer, again in this case police, they can say, we want these storage units, we want forensics, but it has not yet been approved. In fact, we're coming back before you. So we don't have that crystal ball to say this is going to include A, B, and C definitely. What we can say is other offices, because we're having that dialogue and that discussion, and it has not yet been approved. But I do know that early on, we did put evidence, and I want to say it says forensics, but perhaps not, on the Elmo, and this is February of '22. It does say forensic unit. And again, those were requests. And I can assure you, there were other requests that were made that in the sake, or in the interest of keeping costs down, we told the police, no, we're not going to do that. They wanted initially to pave the space where the impounded vehicles would go. We needed to make sure from a stormwater runoff space that we would keep that gravel, because we wanted that water, the water to be able to permeate. So they don't always get what they ask for. So we really cannot tell you it's going to be a paved lot, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, because it requires your approval. It requires this very discussion. And unfortunately, we're not going to give you that definitive from the beginning, because it is part of a plan. And it is part of a need to say, Mayor, do you approve this? Council, do you approve that? And in that moment, when we come before you, that's when it is A, B, and C definitely.
Yeah, and again, you've been working on the forensics part for a while. It should have changed in the description once you knew for sure it was forensics. And I just don't.
Are you stating specifically in the budget book?
In the CIP, yeah, because again, that's where the public goes.
I mean, and we hear you, and we can work collectively with another one of our partner departments, and work on making sure when we have information to provide as much information as possible.
And that's all I'm asking. We're not here to rehash the past. That's not my goal. My goal is, what do we do going forward to make sure that we all understand this? And then the other question I have for either one of you, I'm not quite sure which, is where is the place that we would be able to know, at what point do we know what each project actually entails? Is it at the RFQ point? Like, where in that do we know exactly what it's going to entail?
That design criteria package, that every RFQ, and this is, again, just a little bit of, let me see. Sorry, I got lots of information here. So every RFQ that comes out of the city looks like this. And it gives a description, what all's involved, and then we typically try to give it an estimated budget there. This particular case, we labeled it as current funding, 5.3 million, because there was a lot still to find out. And we were still going from, as you pointed out, just an impound lot to, well, let's move these other facilities there. And then what if we can move all of TPD there? So it was still, so at that time, we had a current funding amount of 5.3 million. And then as part of each one of those RFQs.
Can you zoom out a bit?
Sorry.
Thank you.
We have a design criteria package that is either put together from a firm outside of the city or one of my wonderful architects that work for me in contract administration. And what goes in this package is lots of interviews, research with all of the departments, with our customers, to see exactly what those needs are. And throughout that, you get your scope, purpose. There's that programming, initial and future there. More information. Then we get down into, like I said, they're usually, I mean, they can be quite extensive, but I mean, 10 or 12 pages, and it's like in this, and then we get down to budget. There's a lot of information here, and I understand people don't always want to look through all that information, but that's,
yeah.
But just, I mean, this is more for education, and not just for you people, but you guys, but for the public as well. Like, so every RFQ, most RFQs will have a design criteria package associated with it, and that type of information will be in there. And that same design criteria package, that's like the instructions that we're giving to the people who are awarded these projects. Here's your instructions. And then once they start to, or if at any point we start to alter from those, that's where, and as Councilman Carlson pointed out, you know, we've learned from some mistakes. We listened to council, some of these 3 and 4 projects that he mentioned. Well, now we have a mechanism in that executive order to, when these things grow from 5 million to 10 million to 20 million to 30 million, or they want to add on additional facilities, or we want, you know, there's site relocations, there's all these other items. We have a mechanism now to stop, reevaluate, rebid, and at that point, you know, the public and council would be part of that process as well. So we have that mechanism, and that's why I want to champion this amendment coming up Thursday. This is our first opportunity to use that executive order.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe we just request an RFQ update where council learns about all of the RFQs and the public learns about them, maybe just to make sure that we're on the same page.
I mean, we could,
So I'm gonna,
I mean,
I'm gonna think on that for a bit, but
Okay.
maybe I'll talk to you offline. But just a way, maybe quarterly, we can all find out what these RFQs are.
Yeah, or the grade 8 we do the grade
No.
8, we could put more information into the grade 8 maybe, or I could provide a quarterly update or something like
I don't think eight's
that.
enough, I'll be honest with you. There's 150 projects. If they're over $1 million, we should probably have a little RFQ information until we find a way to make sure that we're getting the details, and then we can back away as we kind of perfect it. But,
And I will also
again,
say,
this is-
I will also say that on contract administration's website, on the city website, all of our RFQs are posted there, and this
Sure.
design criteria package, everything is right there. But as far as, in a way for me to simplify it, I'll be,
Yeah.
I'd be
Again,
happy to help, whatever you can come up
I
with.
think that we could work together to do that, and I just really want to say thank you. I know this is just the beginning of a journey, and I really appreciate your communication, willingness to talk it out. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Cross and Miranda, we gotta wrap it up because they have the funeral. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and my comments are just about process, not about the individual project, if you all need to go. But, Mr. Marterback, I want to also express thanks again. I think you've only been here 18 months, or has it been 2 years already?
June of last year, so about 15 months.
Yeah, so you've been working really hard to change the processes, and I appreciate it. I think the public appreciates it. I've heard a lot of great comments about that. The processes before were not as good as they are now. That executive order changed a lot. One thing that I would recommend, I'm against adding more debt, and I think we've been bonding way too much lately. And I think if in the CIP, we should flag things that intend to be bonded, because that signals to the public that it's going to cost a lot more than it would if we just did pay-go. I don't know how we can flag that, but I wish it said bonding in there. That way the public could find out a lot earlier. Mr. Monteberg, I also wanted to ask you, so if I'm going to make up numbers, but if somebody wants to build a house, they go to a contractor and they say, I can only afford $500,000, let's say. And then if they come back and say, well, it's going to cost $600,000, you can say no, cut certain things out. When your customers come to you, do they give you a budget? Where does the budget come from? Or is it open-ended?
We do have an initial budget, and it's been very difficult. I know we're all tired of hearing it, but it's been very difficult these last 3 or 4 years. I mean, we'll get that $500,000 number, and then by the time we all review it and go back to the contractor to say, okay, we'll do it for $500,000, they say, well, now it's $550 because of X, Y, and Z. So I mean, but
So
we
what
do that. We value engineer. We go back as soon as we get those numbers, we review and we go back. We work very collaboratively with our firm. We've got some really good. We work with a lot of really good firms from the area, and our team and their team work very collaboratively in trying to figure out ways to value engineer, cut scope. I mean, cut certain things where we can. But like I said, by the time we even go through and work through cutting those projects, and then we get a new estimate, these last couple of years we're right back where we started because of escalations.
Yeah, and we'll talk about more of that offline. But if this project came back and it was $100 million, would we still be sitting here talking about $100 million?
I don't think that would have ever got.
I mean, where does the limit come from? In the private sector, you say, just like the house, I've got $500,000. That's it. I don't have any more money. And so, where does the limit come from?
That's talked about internally between, like I said, the departments, budget, and
what if it was
feasibility.
50?
Is this feasible? I mean,
If it was $50 million,
I assure you, if we would have sat around the table, mayor's conference room at $100 million, the discussion would have been over in 30 seconds.
The other thing, thank you. So I think we need to get those kind of numbers out to the public earlier. And if as Ms. Galena said, you all did value engineering, that kind of thing is really important to present to the public too. Look, our customer TPD wanted these bells and whistles. We cut those out, and that saved $10 million. That kind of thing would be important for the public to understand. But there's a lot, I'm getting a lot of feedback anyway from the public that we spend too much money and we don't put limits on it, and we're not careful enough. and that we let contractors come in and bid too much. And so, and also that we're paying too much interest. And to Councilmember Miranda's comment about interest, I think it is a good idea for us to put a disclosure for the total cost of a project. And if you make a motion, I'll support it. But you know, when you buy a house, there's a full disclosure form that has the total cost. It has the closing costs. It has the title insurance. It has everything that you might not know, but it also has the interest, and you see what you're going to be paying through the whole time. And why is that important? On a building like Hannah Avenue, if you take 121 million and divide it by 30 years, however many months that is, you could compare that number to how much you would pay in rent. But that's not going to give you an accurate number, because the more accurate number would include the interest, and it would include O&M. And if you're paying some level of O&M and rent, you have to include it on that side too. You have to include whatever the escalation costs are and other things. But the only way you can look at apples and apples is to look at the total cost of it. And that's the same thing the public should do. If somebody wants to buy an affordable home for the first time, they go through classes that are FHA approved, and they teach people how they need to not just look at the principal, but they need to look at interest and insurance and all the other additional costs. And so I think it is important to look at all of that, and we need to continue to do it. And it's not to be punitive in any way. It is the total cost of the public. And if we can do pay-go like we are on the bricks in Ybor City, we're going to save a lot of money versus if we're borrowing money. And if we're borrowing money, I think we need to show a real strong reason for it. Last question, what are we doing about the trees on the site?
So we had an arborist come in and examine all the trees. The grand oaks will all remain, and that was part of the process. As you know, we're not really trying to be in the impound business anymore, so we're trying to outsource that to private businesses. So we will not be storing as many vehicles at this new facility. Although the 34th Street project is primarily called the impound lot, we did a lot of evidence storage there, and we did have small forensic processing there. So we will bring that all to Hannah, but the Grand Oaks will all stay. So the arborist study is done.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I'll make it very sweet. When you talked about impound lot, my mind's winding backwards. And 3 or 4 years ago, I believe we had all the record impound people that were in the rotation really concerned about their future, because there was a rumor, I don't know if it was factual, that they were going to all go to one record company. So then in my mind, I'm assuming that what you all have done is on the storage of those impound cards that you need for forensic evidence, it's to one company only. Am I right or wrong?
That's correct. The rotation impound did not change at all.
Yeah.
We just
So now
are renting.
that was a company card with a C.
Yes,
like
that's
Charlie, but
correct.
It wasn't Charlie. And what it is, I assume we still have the rotation going on other vehicles. Is
Yes,
that
we
correct?
do.
I just want to get that clear, because I'm sure they're listening, and I don't want any confusion. And that's why it became a storage area, because you had to what? Professionalize your operation and
That's correct.
today's society's needs and necessity when you go to court. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Public comment? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you say the name of the officer that passed away, the funeral, the name was?
Yes, he's retired Detective Ray Estevez.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Please state your name.
When myself.
Please say your name.
Hi, Stephanie Pointer. When I go looking for a capital improvement project for the city of Tampa, this is where I go. Please note, there's one facility management project, that's Hannah Street, and there's one fire project. There's no TPD projects. So I keep looking here for projects and I can't find what I'm looking for. There's no solid waste project here. Why? If this is where we're supposed to go to find out what we're spending our giant pots of money on, why is it not in here? And when Councilwoman Hurtak is asking why, this says 162 projects, but I just listed off 2 or 3 that aren't even in this list. Why do we have this website if we're not going to put the information in here? And that CIP list that you were given at the last budget meeting, the one that had all the news over to the left, those aren't in here either, most of them. So why do we have this? So I just wanted to point out, it's real hard for the public to know something when we can't find it. Okay, I'd like to point out that Councilman Vieira has asked at least 100 times, and I've heard it from everybody else too, public safety master plan. If we had a public safety master plan, that would kind of include the buildings, wouldn't it? I mean, I could be wrong. I always end up here with questions, more questions than I have answers. I'd like to point out that rezoning and Wellswood signing off on this doesn't have a damn thing to do with how much money you're going to spend on it. It means they're okay with the project. That means that the rezoning was okay with the project. It doesn't have anything to do with how much money it was. And I guarantee you, if you told them that we have spent $330-ish million in capital projects over the last 5 years since this was rezoned and okayed by the neighborhood, I guarantee you they're going to tell you that, oh, wait a minute, we are going down this road again. I sent you the yellow brick road. This is the first step on the yellow brick road. This is where we're going to come back. I'm so confused. This gentleman told us, and I'm sorry, I didn't get his name because I was too busy writing down the facts. This gentleman told us that, oh, this is almost 100% done, but we're coming back and asking for more money. Why do they need more money if they're almost done? This thing that's coming back, I don't understand. I don't even understand what it is. And if I don't understand what it is, go find somebody else who does, who doesn't work here. Next. Public safety impact fees, you know what? In 2021, you guys were asked to raise public safety impact fees. That would have probably paid for part of this had we had it in the thing. We've spent $2.6 million already, but we need another $1 million. Oh, and 40%. If our construction costs had went up 40%, and we originally estimated at 5.3%, that would make it $7.4 million. Not 40, not 40.
Thank you very much.
We need these facilities,
Thank
but
you
we've
very
got to
much.
get our heads out of our behind.
Thank you very much. All right, next is item number 1, council to discuss the fiscal year 2025 operating budget. Where do we begin here? Who's going to kick it off? Mr. Rogero? Come on up, sir. And please state your name.
Please. Good morning, City Council. Dennis Rogero, Chief Financial Officer.
Wait, just a moment. Yes, sir?
I'm sorry.
Question, do the, just for purposes of time, do the council rules that we adopted, do they apply to workshops?
In what sense? What are you
Like in
looking
terms
at?
of speaking 5 minutes, 3 minutes?
Yeah,
etc.?
they had the timer on.
Oh, no, okay, just because I was looking under section H, again, just for the rules, if we're gonna follow them, it says council shall limit time for discussion, debate, and an agenda item to be no longer than 5 minutes on the first go-round, 3 minutes in the second go-round, and it said council members should refrain from speaking more than twice in the same subject meeting. Just Mr. Shelby, again, if we're gonna enforce rules, let's enforce rules. That's all I'm saying.
You got it. Thank you very much. Yes, sir, Mr. O'Hara. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning again, Council. Dennis Rogero, Chief Financial Officer. Pardon me, and thank you again for having us here to talk about the fiscal year 25 budget, the operating budget. Again, as always, I appreciate the discussions we've had amongst us since the presentation of the budget and the CIP workshop 2 weeks ago, and the discussions we've had with your budget analyst. Again, you see the mayor's executive team is here to answer questions. I have a very brief presentation, very similar to the CIP workshop a couple weeks ago, if that is council's pleasure.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. If I could have the presentation up, please. Thank you. And again, a quick refresh of some of the slides and some of the discussions associated with the budget presentation back in July. Two very important drivers that we just talked a little bit about and we'll discuss again later on in the day, the police and fire expenses of just under $390 million on the left. Again, we like to emphasize this because they are very, very important services, obviously, but they're also very, very large portions of the general fund. Another very large portion of the general fund on the right is how we fund these services, and those are the total property taxes we anticipate for fiscal year 25. 354 plus, I'm sorry, ma'am, question?
Councilmember Hurtak asked me if he should have 5 minutes as well to do his presentation for the workshop rules.
So if we're gonna follow the 5 minutes only, then he should only have 5 minutes. And
It
I
went
just
my-
don't think that's right for a budget workshop. So I just wanted to extend his time to whatever he needs.
Well,
We have a motion and a
Thank you,
second. All in
very kind.
favor? Aye.
And
Mr.
Mr.
Shelby,
Chair-
just for
and
clarity.
Thank you, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Just as a general rule, historically, customarily, council's workshops have been not as formal as the rules as they apply to a regular meeting. But certainly, you can inquire as to how much time the staff needs for its presentation, and then they can adjust their time if they need more accordingly, however you wish to do it. But if the council's rules wish to be strictly followed, then it would be incumbent upon the chair to be able to do that by points of order or by the
Yeah,
council.
that was just what I wanted to make
And
sure
that's-
that he didn't have to stop halfway through his presentation, because if we're gonna make that, then anyway.
And for purposes of time planning, you may want to inquire, even in advance, Mr. Chairman, even in advance, to know how long a presentation would run. So if you wish to inquire now about how long the presentation is, just for general planning purposes, time management, then you can inquire, if you wish.
Mr. O'Hara, I have a question. How long do you think you'll need for this presentation?
I believe it'll be less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, 'cause it's very
Perhaps a
short.
dozen slides. I anticipated that most of the time for this workshop would be a conversation and dialogue with City Council.
Thank you very much, sir. Go
You're
ahead.
welcome. Thank you for your consideration. And again, we highlight this, it's anecdotal again, but when I'm talking to members of the community, and as a member of the community, I typically associate property taxes with funding government. Of course, as we know, and as much of the public knows, there's much more to it than that. And you see the property taxes on the right. Once you account for the funding we have to transfer to the community redevelopment agencies, just a little over $300 million, and obviously insufficient to fund police and fire by themselves. And we have other revenues that we bring to bear to fund police and fire, public safety, and the other general fund agencies. Again, an emphasis on our fund balance, specifically our unassigned fund balance. Again, we always appreciate council's very strong support of these levels. And as we mentioned, and will continue to mention, a very important metric when it comes to credit rating agencies and financial health benchmarks. As always, to maintain the same proportion, that 23-24%, it is necessary. I'm sorry, I lost it. Did you all lose it?
There it is.
There it is. It is necessary to increase it over time as the general fund budget increases over time. We plan for this, and you see we anticipate it's still going to be 23%, well over our 20% policy, as always, and as you see, as has been the history. It's approximately $19 million over our 20% policy. As I've said before, and happy to say again, this paints a very nice, financially consistent and stable picture. I believe we come back to City Council in November, if I'm not mistaken, to further discuss fund balance projections and actuals. So again, a few months, we'll be discussing this in much more detail. Council will recall this slide from the budget presentation last month, where we break the general fund revenues down, highlighting the majorities. Again, property taxes, $20 million, not insignificant, but significantly less than we initially anticipated, and we've talked about the increase being substantially less for others and for ourselves and other localities. I believe I spoke to most of the other and miscellaneous revenues, but we have been asked to provide additional detail and breakdown, and you see that provided here on this slide. Again, property taxes at the top. I would highlight the transfer from the Utility Taxes Service Fund at $14.7 million. Without getting too wonkish and in too much detail, we're a bit idiosyncratic here in the city of Tampa. You may recall we treat the Utility Services Tax Fund and the General Fund essentially as one large general fund. So you have an inter-fund transfer there of nearly $15 million as we take that funding and incorporate it into the general fund. We have done that for decades. Again, we're a little unique in the fact that we have a general fund made up essentially from a real life, real world perspective of two funds. This will be, like to just perhaps socialize changing that in the future. We've attempted to do so in the past without success. It leads to a little bit of confusion when we're trying to explain, even within the city and with the public, how we have to move funding back and forth. And if you move $1 million and recognize it in one fund and move it to another fund, all of a sudden that becomes $2 million. I'll get off my soapbox now. Most of the other revenues, I think, are pretty self-explanatory. We talked about the electric utility tax, electric franchise fees, and the circumstances leading to those increases. We can go down the list. We can come back to it. I would like to point out at the bottom, though, the use of assigned reserves. As council knows, we have a number of assigned reserves for different purposes. Claims and judgments, for example. We have an assigned reserve for our hurricane fund. We have an assigned reserve for health care. The purpose of these assigned reserves are to, of course, buttress us against unforeseen events. A recent example, of course, is the Dubois settlement, where it was a $9 million payout in the current fiscal year, and we still owe Mr. Dubois $5 million in the next 2 years. Again, the primary purpose is to buttress not only our finances for black swan events, et cetera, but to keep that unassigned balance, that magic 23%, safe. And you see our necessary use of it again in the current fiscal year. Totals the $57.4 million of the previous slide. During the budget presentation, we also provided council a very high-level view of our expenditure increases, you'll recall. I skipped ahead on a slide there. Again, the $57.4 million. Since that time, Councilwoman Hurtak has asked that we have detail available for those, there's my green highlight, for those budget increases that are increased costs, increased level of services, and new services. Far too many line items for a PowerPoint presentation, so we've provided that to you hard copy. Identified by department, so you can easily, I think, identify which departments have which increases for which purposes. And again, I anticipate we'll talk more about that. Our citywide position summary, again, we compare favorably, as we have for years, to the position complement we had before the great financial crisis, just under 5,050. Our proposed positions for fiscal year 2025 are 4,995, and we are requesting 6 additional positions in the fiscal year 25 budget. And that concludes my presentation, other than to remind the public of our scheduled continuing meetings for the approval of the fiscal year 2025 budget, and those are the 2 public hearings, one on September 3rd and the final one on September 17th. Thank you again. As always, appreciate the additional attention, not only to our process, but to our budget and what's contained within, and we're available to answer questions.
All right, 5 minutes in the first round, 3 minutes in the second round. Who wants to kick it off?
I actually want to make a motion that we don't, I mean, this is a budget workshop.
Okay, we're going to lose a council member at 11 o'clock.
Ask.
So.
Yeah, but I think,
No, it's fine.
then I'd like to let whatever council member has to leave at 11 go first.
Pardon me.
Yeah, okay, because I was going to say, if you, I would like then, Mr. Miranda should go first if he has to leave.
And I'll be right back.
All right, who wants to start off the conversation?
Thank you for responding to all of my questions earlier today. I appreciate it. I don't have any really public comments.
Yes, ma'am.
Except when the reduction of the staff, the 53 folks, how do we know where that came from? Like, was that an internal decision by HR that we no longer need them?
The bulk of that happened, and I was here when it did happen, as part of the Great Recession back in 2009, 2010. And that's one of the reasons we compare it, is because that was really the height of our position complement. And as part of that great recession or great financial crisis, the revenues, especially the general fund revenues, were substantially less for a few years. So we eliminated, if memory serves, 600 to 700 positions over the course of those 2 years. So I guess it's been dynamic for quite some time.
Chief, you want to say something on that?
Thank you, Councilwoman. John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Good morning, Council. Good morning to the public. I just wanted to build on the vacancies or positions that have been over 180 days. Last fiscal year, the Budget Office, obviously all of staff scrutinized those positions to see if they needed job description changes and things like that. We were down to 21 positions as a snapshot at this point. Of those 21, 17 are in the queue for job description changes and being filled, so which is 81% of those positions that are over 180 days. So we are breaking these positions down, and of course, the mayor's first thing to all of us is before we create new, we need to repurpose other ones that are vacant through attrition as much as possible.
Okay, because I noticed that the EEO office gained 2 people, but that was in the FY24 fiscal year, so it looks like an increase, but it's really not. It's just the add-on of staff that exists. That I noticed that there was an increase for 25, but it was because of the hiring that we did this year.
Understood.
So that department has grown.
I have to follow the calculus on that a little bit.
Okay.
So obviously, there's the net growth or decrease, but then department program-wide, there could be different numbers, so I'd have to look at that specific budget section.
Okay, because it looked like we got the analyst that I was asking for last year, and I was just trying to figure that part
Yeah.
out, but thank you.
I'll get
back.
you offline on that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I just was curious, the positions reduced question, I don't think you got it answered. Are you saying those are from 2007?
Yes, that's.
Okay, then I think it's just confusing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was not my intention to confuse. That is a slide we incorporate every year as we measure ourselves against when we had the most employees we've ever had.
Yeah, in 2007, it was 750 layoffs, reduction of positions.
It was 600 or 700. It's been some
So
time, but hundreds and
we're coming
hundreds.
back
Yes.
to pre-Great Recession numbers.
Yes, we've been slowly building over time. I do have the answer to your question, ma'am. Yes, the EBO office increased 2 FTEs in the current fiscal year. Yes.
Councilmember
Thanks,
Hurtak,
Mike.
Councilmember Carlson.
I want to go to the charges for service. I think that's page 5. And that, by charges for service, you mean fees, right? Basically, isn't that a nice way to say fees?
Yes, ma'am.
So, so I just wanted an update on our fee study and how we're doing on the fees. And I know it's not simple because there's tons of fees. So I just would like this as your moment to kind of talk about how that's going and what we can expect and, you know, how that's going to increase year over year.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you. And the $3.5 million listed is primarily convention center, parks and recreation, fire, and police. From a fee perspective, of course, we've talked about it in the past. Citizens Advisory Committee has also opined on the need to, if nothing else, modernize some of our fees. We are proceeding, council will recall, on our charges for credit card services. Okay, as we work internally for that, I believe I've shared with you as we looked around to some other localities. Some did it externally by hiring a third party, some did it internally. We continue to pursue it internally. Also, the ACH fees we've talked about. Again, we're pursuing that in my accounting shop. So those continue apace, and I'm going to remind myself to bring you an update of that, excuse me.
That would be wonderful, an update on how that's going. Are you sort of doing it department by department, or?
We are doing it citywide. If it's a credit card charge, of course, we'd like to incorporate that citywide in all departments. In the ACH, wherever there's a potential to charge that fee, we'll charge it there. And I'll bring you back an update on that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant the fees for just average things. I think one of the things that we talked about, increasing the fee to do like a PD or something like that. How are those fees in each department that the Budget Advisory Committee is working on? How are those going?
Oh, I'll give you a 50,000-foot level,
Yeah,
and I'll
that's fine.
probably need some help. I will remind council and the public that the overwhelming majority of our fees have kept pace, but we have Parks and Recreation comes to mind, of course, transportation fees come to mind. We have, and I'll set aside impact fees for now, but we have some very sensitive fees that would help us, even though most of our revenue and most of our fees are up to date, of course, some of those would help us. I mean, I don't need to talk about transportation. If you want detailed department by department, I'll have to bring up the department or perhaps Mike Perry. I just know the efforts are continuing. And just to recall and remind City Council, we did do a retrospective look to make sure that what was amenable or what was able to be increased, we had increased. But again, I'll reference the transportation fees that haven't been updated in decades. If you want more specifics than that, I'll have to defer.
Okay, well, I'll work
I
with you
apologize.
offline to, no,
Okay.
don't apologize, but I'll work with you offline to come up with a time that you can come and present to us. So we won't worry about that right now, but I appreciate
And other
it.
fees. Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson,
Well, I had a few other questions, but I don't really know how this time thing's going, so.
you turn off your mic, I didn't know if you were.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So now I kind of want to talk about housing a bit. I wanted to just double check for the public and just make sure that we have the same $10.7 million in the budget we had for housing as the same as we did last year. And that's for both RMAP, homeowner occupied rehab, down payment assistance, and homeless services.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's very important that I wanted to make sure that the public understands that we have the same amount and that those go to programs that this council supports wholeheartedly. We've been talking about the CLT, the $5 million for the CLT to help start that. Is that in a particular account somewhere?
If I could turn to the Elmo real quick and let me know when you can see it. Please.
There we go.
Oh.
There it is.
It'll come on our screen here.
Our screen.
Again, let me just set the table, if you will. The housing program property acquisition you see as part of our anticipated debt program. We have $11 million, I think, for 2 sites. We have talked about another site that is not on here yet.
We need it on our screens here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you had it.
No, we
Apologize.
can't. There we go.
The housing program property acquisition, $11 million. We anticipate as part of that bond in the current fiscal year. Those are for 2 sites. I understand a 3rd site may be in play. And if that comes to fruition, our intention is to add that to this bond. The Community Land Trust is not in there right now, but again, when it comes to fruition, we have the flexibility with our debt program. If I can recap, you'll recall we had talked about up to $50 million for the current fiscal year 24. Of course, that was tied to the millage increase, which didn't happen. So in order to fund tens of millions of dollars of housing, we intend to, as you see here with the $11 million, roll it into the bond. So we can be very flexible, I guess is the upshot, depending on what we want to bond.
Well, so I guess that's my confusion because I thought that the $5 million was for operating, to stand up the Community Land Trust and get that started. If I remember correctly, we were about 3/4 of the way to having that completely ready to go.
And perhaps it's my misunderstanding. My understanding was it was for property acquisition just under the Community Land Trust umbrella as a capital improvement project.
Yes, maybe someone from
Someone
housing.
know better than I?
Sure. The CLT money, the 5 million that we were talking for operations over 3 years, there was supposed to be 5 million over 3 years to set up the community land trust. At the end of those 3 years, it could be an independent agency. And so I was wondering where that money is in the budget, and if it's not there, I guess just an update on that.
Okay, Abby Feely, Interim Administrator, Development and Economic Opportunity. The plan for the CLT, when Elise and Nicole departed, it is still there. We're not in a position to set that CLT up as of yet. In relation to those monies, we just had a meeting with Mr. Perry and some of our bond rating and other individuals to talk through that $50 million, what that was, in terms of there were 3 efforts that were under that $50 million. There was an acquisition effort. Remember, we talked about how do we get in the game and be a member in trying to acquire properties that would be ripe for affordable housing opportunities. There was also a preservation element to that. How do we work with existing properties, maybe some of the hotels along Hillsborough, to look at how we then convert those? And then there was the CLT. So that is still in discussions, and we've had those discussions in when we are ready to do that. But we're not at a position at this moment to move that forward.
Okay, so we're looking for that in the future.
I'm sorry, ma'am, just if we can clarify, it seems that that will be a capital expense and likely bondable. Bonding would be the likely funding source.
So we're looking to bond that. So in terms of the third development, there is a affordable housing program going on in Ybor Art Space that needs $500,000 to get going. Is that the third project that you are talking about?
Oh, okay. No, it is not.
Okay.
It was not. We're looking at making a large acquisition of a couple acres of a property in East Tampa.
Okay.
But again, being able to have those unrestricted funds gives us an opportunity to pursue those types of opportunities without necessarily having to come and get approval for that first.
Sure, understandable. And
I mean, we will come back to you clearly with the
yes.
agreement and everything else, but we've got to be able to come to the table and have that advantage, just like any other private property person, to try to get some of these properties we know are coming available and would be huge opportunities for us.
No, and we've talked about that offline,
Yes.
so I
Yes,
completely understand that. So I'm looking to find that $500,000 for the art space, which will give 40 to 80% affordable housing, like period, in perpetuity. So that would be a very cheap investment by us. So that is something that I'm definitely looking for. Thank you.
And if I can just, whoops, I got it. I apologize for the mystery. I'm just not sure what I can share publicly.
No, and I greatly understand that. I just wanted to clarify that if that's not the project, then that is a project that we need to fund this year.
If I can just postscript that also, you see the $11 million here. I do want to reiterate, we can be very, very flexible to move if an opportunity presents itself.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
We've proven we can do that in the past, and I can feel my budget officer burrowing into me with his eyes that, of course, we will never bond anything we don't have to bond.
Correct.
But we do have to have a plan. Thank you.
And the other question I'll ask for right now is TPD. Since there's no one here from TPD, maybe Chief Bennett can answer this question. We have had some success with the behavioral health program. We had them come forward and give an update on what they're doing. And I was hoping to see more funding in that program this year. Could you speak to whether or not we're going to be able to expand that program this year?
Yeah, it's a great question, and of course, a great program. I know from talking iteratively with the police department and their continued research on the models that are like even in St. Pete, and I think you may have seen a recent memo on one of the motions that kind of expanded on that. And I personally went to the 911 center and sat in while they were handling those calls off the grant, which is really becoming a more proactive way to deal with this. To answer your question specifically, I'm not aware of any funding that we have to expand it right now, but I know that the chief's interest on making these practices that we have now institutionalized in what we're doing and looking for funding to both continue them when the grant subsides in the 911 center and also building up the field staff. I know Chief Burkall has a number that he would need to do the exact thing that's going on in St. Pete. And of course, because of our size and scale, it would be a little bit more than what St. Pete is spending. And I also sat in the conference room when St. Pete came over and presented their model so we could extrapolate our costs. So the answer is I don't believe there's anything in to expand it now, but there isn't good intentions to do so.
Okay, great. Well, I'll follow up with the chief on that, and that I'll be done for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson.
Just some general comments. The priorities I'm hearing from constituents are roads, parks, and public safety, TPD and fire. Over the last, affordable housing continues to be a huge issue. We put in, mainly through the CRA, we put in a huge amount of money in affordable housing in the last few years. But what's happened in the meantime is that we need to look at some of these other areas as well. The thing about the budget is always a balance. I represent South Tampa. I have been a strong advocate for spending money in other parts of the city, and there needed to be some equity because before I got on council anyway, too much money was spent downtown and the rest of the city was ignored. And there is the feeling or thought that the roads in South Tampa are perfect, that the parks in South Tampa are perfect, and the truth is the opposite. Some of the worst roads in the city are in South Tampa. Some of the worst parks in the city are in South Tampa. And the reason is that first everything was spent in downtown, and then everything was spent in other parts of the city. And we need to go back and look at South Tampa and not forget them and not pretend like everything's fine. There aren't hordes of people that are coming in complaining about it yet, but we're going to have it soon if we don't start doing something. The roads are absolutely terrible in South Tampa, and they're some of the worst I've ever seen anywhere in the road. We've absolutely got to fix them. We've got to increase the road repair budget. The parks also, there's a park, Interbay Park. I mention it all the time, has ADA issues. There's things literally falling on kids in there. It's been put on the agenda. It's got to be moved forward. Councilmember Vieira has been pushing for ADA accessibility in all the parks. We've got to move that forward citywide. There are other parks that are falling apart as well, though, and we've got to look at those, and we've got to accelerate the agenda of fixing these. What's happened in the last few years is that economic development no more is about downtowns. It's about where people live. And we saw lots of millionaires and probably some billionaires move to Tampa during COVID. And now, anecdotally, many of them are moving back because they don't like the state of the roads, and they don't like the state of the parks, and they don't like the state of the schools to some extent. We've got to, and perceptions of public safety, we've got to fix these things because economic development of the future is neighborhoods and how people live around them. TPD, we know that that there's a shortage of folks in there. PBA has asked for 200 more police officers. We increased it slightly last year. The question this year is, and I'll just go through my points, and you guys can answer this if you want, but if we think we need 200, if PBA thinks we need 200, and the police I talked to on the streets believe that too, how are we going to add any? It's somewhere between 100, 200,000 to fund a new police officer. We're losing a lot because of drop. How are we going to replace them? There are rumors that after the Ybor shooting, police officers were reassigned from Howard Avenue to Ybor, and then after the shooting in Howard Avenue, they were reassigned from Ybor to Howard Avenue. All that does is that creates problems in both areas, plus everywhere else in the city. The solution is we need more police officers. We also need more fire stations and safe equipment for our firefighters. The other question I had is we had pretty aggressive raises for the union folks, all three unions in the last few years, but the mid to senior level managers didn't get anything. I think the mayor's senior staff got something, but there's a lot of people that work hard who are not unionized, who also don't work closely with the mayor. And you had a blank on your sheet a couple weeks ago. I'd like to know what they're going to get. We've got to come up with a number at some point. What are they going to get? They have to have an expectation of what they're going to do. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot more people in drop. Lastly, in looking at the stormwater budget, it appears that some positions that are funded by stormwater are pure mobility positions. What are the laws and rules around the stormwater money? Can it be used on regular mobility issues like parking can, or is stormwater only supposed to be used on stormwater? And I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Mr. Beda, do you want to answer some of those questions? Sure.
If you've got it off the top of your head.
Yeah. So I can get more, oh, sorry. Good morning, Vic Bede, Director of Mobility, morning Chair, morning Council. We have two stormwater assessments. One is for improvement, which can only be used for capital projects for stormwater improvements. The other is a service assessment, which can only be used for maintenance of stormwater facilities. Both of them, the areas are defined. We can get additional information from legal if you like, but the gist is that these assessments are earmarked for specific purposes, and that correlate with the stormwater system. Now, as far as stormwater improvements are concerned, because roadways also convey stormwater, and a lot of stormwater into our systems, a certain amount of paving does qualify, but it has to relate to a stormwater capital project. So that's the gist.
So the positions that are listed there, are they all pure stormwater, or are some of them pure mobility? Because some of them look like they're pure mobility.
So mobility is the department. Stormwater is a division within mobility, stormwater engineering. And under operations, we have transportation operations and stormwater operations. And the stormwater assessment can only fund stormwater positions. It cannot fund transportation positions, but that is within the mobility department. Mobility is the umbrella.
All right, we can talk about that offline.
Sure.
Thank you.
I had a question per a comment made by Councilmember Hurtak about $500,000 for the housing for the artists. Is that correct? And then Councilmember Carlson mentioned about street paving, which I agree on both issues. We had mentioned several weeks ago the smart city parking guidance, the $12 million there, and moving that money around. Mm-hmm. Is that within an enterprise fund that we can only spend it on road items, or can we take $500,000 of that and put it towards the arts and then the rest towards the paving? No, can't split it up.
Well, I will defer to Mr. Bede, other than the fact that it is part of the budget right now. There were comments about not funding it and reallocating the funding to other purposes. So I'll begin with, to my knowledge, no decision has been made by council. So okay. Sticking a pin in that, your question is about funding it at a lesser extent, sir?
No. If that money is strictly dedicated to parking, transportation, meaning like it could go to road paving, but you can't take $500,000 of that and put it towards something that's not road related or transportation related.
I believe it has to be tangentially related. Mr. Bede, do you agree?
Sure. So parking charges and fees are controlled by a statute that allows municipalities to charge for parking. Those funds can be used for mobility-related purposes outside of parking.
Okay, not that housing issue. Just curious. Councilmember Vieira, you were next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. One thing I did want to highlight, which is when we're talking about numbers of city employees being about the same from 2007 to today, I mean, I know this is open and obvious, but I'll state it. Our city of Tampa population back in 2007 was probably, what, 315,000 or so, maybe 320, más o menos, more or less. So in other words, when we're talking about having the same number of employees, that's less services per individual, et cetera. I don't know what the police and fire numbers were back then. I'm sure Chief Bennett knows that. Maybe, do you happen to know that, sir? What the numbers were around 2010 for TPD and TFR?
I'll go back a little further when John Bennett, Chief of Staff, when we changed the mission statement and the business process in 2003, we had a little over 1,000 officers. That number has gone down to the 950s between there and 20 years later, mostly due to efficiencies, technology, and different operational best practices that have been put in place. Now we are finally hitting the point with the police department that we need to keep up with growth of the population because I would argue they're optimized.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I would say the same thing with TFR. I mean, I'm of the view, I mean, it's open and obvious. I think we need to hire more police officers. And I'll talk about very briefly, the tax that I tried to implement last year that would have gone to that and other things. But I do think that's something to be said, that we're talking about having roughly the same number of individuals serving in City of Tampa government, that our population has grown by about 25% since then. So that does say something about government services. Councilman Carlson, one thing I wanted to jump on and support is on South Tampa roads and parks. You know, I live in Tampa, and a lot of people go, South Tampa has everything. South Tampa has everything. Just go out to the roads and the parks there, and it's very problematic. Some of the worst roads in the city of Tampa maintained are in South Tampa. And so there's that perception that because it is by stereotype an affluent area that the roads are great. One thing has no relationship to the other, obviously. And then lastly, and I will talk about this later when we talk about when Chief Tripp comes up here, but the tax, I always want to point out that last year I tried to, the mayor had wanted a 1.0 tax. I had motioned to strip that back 70% and have all of the funds go to police and fire. That would have raised this year about $14 or $15 million. So that's why I did it, because we're talking about these things that are really, really necessary for police and for fire. And we can either bond it, and that's what I motioned to do with fleet maintenance and with Fire Station 24, and that's going to cost more money on the long run, or we can do some sort of a hybrid, et cetera. So then there's questions on the artist housing. I would want to meet with people more on that before going forward with that. I've heard some rumblings about what that is, and I'd like to find out more about that before going forward, et cetera. If it's something, housing that is geared towards artists, out of the, and by the way, I'm not going to speak on it because I want to be briefed on it, so that's all. But I want to know more about that before voting on it. Thank you very much.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I'm sorry I came. I had to leave awake, and fortunately I was in and out. Let me just say that this past weekend, I had a lot of calls from South Tampa. A lot, I mean 5 or 6. And the streets were flooded for something that I had never heard of. And I texted Mr. John Bennett, Chief of Staff, and then he went down and talked to Mr. Vidai. And these things are phenomenal what happened. But when I tell you that the streets were really flooded on a small amount of rain, they were really, really flooded. I mean, like 6 inches to 10 inches. So yesterday I had the honor of going down there. Got invited to my daughter's birthday party, which I always do every year. And she showed me, I have a video of it that she has on her phone. I'm going to have her send it to us so we can distribute it. I don't know what it is, but it's got to have something to do with something that I'm not sure of, or a amount of different things happening, like some of the sewer lines were stuffed up. I don't know. But I can tell you that the rest of the city was not under. And I'm not asking you to be prepared, but if you are, you're welcome to come up. And I'm working with Mr. Carlson. I'm let you know that it was right in the borderline between yours and mine. And it was, but it makes no difference whose border it is. There is no borders when you're elected. And I want to thank you all for your response so quickly and rapidly. And I'd imagine.
Sure. Thank you, Councilman. And I recognize this is an operating budget workshop, so I'll keep it brief, but I did share with council kind of some phenomena that has been going on for a few years now. The gist is, while annual rainfalls in the state of Florida have been more or less the same, the rain is falling in intense storms and smaller packets, if you will. So 3 or 4 days of no rains, and then we get intense storms. And these storms can sometimes be hyper-localized. So what happened last Friday, for example, is by our Aileen Pond in South Tampa, around the MacDill and Aileen area, we had over 3 inches of rain in 1 hour and almost 3.5 inches of rain in 2 hours. That will inundate our stormwater systems. Our stormwater systems are not designed as they are right now for that much rain in that short of a time. The same thing happened elsewhere in South Tampa, around Manhattan and San Carlos, I believe. And that was about 2.5 inches of rain. What we measure from a maintenance and a stormwater system perspective is when we get that kind of rain, yes, it will inundate the system, create street flooding. Does that flooding dissipate within 2.5 hours? If it does, then the system as designed is working, which is why we propose additional CIPs to expand some capacity of these systems, particularly in built-up areas. But that's one part of the equation. The other part that we have to consistently work with is to create more sponge-like surfaces across the city, preserve green areas that already exist, preserve trees, plant more trees, and then work with our building department and other agencies to make sure that built-up areas not only contain stormwater on site, but also create additional pervious surfaces. And we've done that with our stormwater capital projects as well. Like for Southeast Seminole Heights, the parking areas are pervious concrete. We're going to do the same with every other project. In fact, the mayor did have an executive order a couple of years back in working with WIT to consider sustainability and resilience. And in our world, what that means is as much permeability in our surfaces as possible, be it natural or through materials that are inevitably needed for things like parking spaces.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the reasons they gave me, he said overbuilding. And my answer was, as far as I know the code, any building that goes up is supposed to retain the water on their land. Now, if that's factual,
That is correct. That is correct. Mitigation on site is required, and there is a requirement for, depending on the use, what percentage of a plot or property can be built up. And for single family, for example, it's 5149.
well, thanks again for your quick response.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am? No? Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just asking if you, okay. So, Mr. Bide, don't get comfy. This is a longer discussion, and I just wanted to start it with council, and I've spoken to you about this. I will make the motion to move that $5 million from the parking guidance to paving, if that's the one you're talking about. It's 12 million, but it's 5 million this year, 7 million next year. So I'm happy to make that motion. But there's a second project, the parking, the EV charging stations and infrastructure upgrades. That was 1.5 million. And we're having trouble right now with funding transportation overall. And what I mean by that is we are trying to get a BRT from downtown to USF. Yeah, the bus rapid transit. One of the issues that HART is having, and DOT, FDOT is saying that local communities, be it the county, the cities, that we are not putting any skin in the game. We aren't funding it at all. And so they're hesitant to give us more money or to give the system money if we aren't going to participate in it. One of the issues that the BRT is having is that it needs to have 3,000, the Route 1, which will turn into the BRT. And Mr. Vide, if you need to interrupt me in any of this, I'm getting this wrong, please let me know. Right now, we don't have, HART doesn't have the full ridership it needs to open that BRT at 3,000 riders a day. So one of the things I would like to do this year is take that charging station money, the 1.5, give it to Hart to fund fare-free Route 1 for the year. That will cover the route, and it will increase the route from 20 minutes to 15-minute headways. What this will do is multiple things. One, the streetcar is very successful because it's free. It's successful for other reasons. But if people had to pay for it, they wouldn't use it as much. Second, this community does not have a history of bus riding, and generally, it just simply doesn't. But we aren't going to be able to get any money from FDOT or the feds if we can't start to show some progress. Thank you.
I'd like to provide some clarification or context.
Yeah, that would be great. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Sure, but so thank you for bringing this up. I'll clarify whether the city is funding or not. So HART is set up, of course, as a countywide agency. The city has 4 board seats on the board itself, and Councilman Vieira, of course, is the chair of the HART board. So residents of Tampa do contribute to HART because that's in all of our property bills. That's part of the countywide funding scenario. So we do contribute to transit, but it is sorely underfunded. And I think we've seen that over and over again. We are funded at a very, very low rate relative to the other 19 of the. So that is definitely a need. We are in discussions when it comes to the streetcar budget right now with HART because their costs, according to them right now, are higher than they have been historically. And I have scheduled briefings with some of you that are either on the THS board or HART boards to discuss this because we're working through them. We'd like to see an independent cost allocation, understand what the ramifications are, understanding that it's kind of late in this year's budget cycle, but we'll continue to work with them on the same. As far as Route 1 and BRT is concerned, HART did study the north-south alignment, which is also the TPO's #1 priority for premium transit service, and that is a BRT, bus rapid transit system between downtown and USF. This alignment is also similar to Route 1 with the key difference of applying Fowler in the BRT scenario versus Fletcher. This alignment is also part of our discussions for a regional infrastructure accelerator where we have committed to work with HART to find the resources available. So there are 2 items here. One is the existing route and its ridership, which my understanding is far short of 3,000 riders a day. And the other is the state's imposed condition, which is they would assist in funding a BRT system, the capital, not the operating, important, should that ridership bear out. And then there are other questions to answer, which is if it is to be a fixed guideway type system, does it have its own lane or not? So that's kind of the background and context. This now is just my opinion on the BRT system itself. HART is already facing a fiscal cliff. They're already falling short on funding their operating costs. And whether the focus should be on expanding existing service and making it better or introducing premium transit or not is up to transit experts ultimately. But the operating costs will still have to be borne out at some point. And then finally, as transit is concerned, beyond us funding transit, it isn't the city's mandate to provide transit services beyond the streetcar today. But that does not mean that, council does not reserve the right to allocate budgets.
And that's why I brought it up. I sit on the TPO, and right now our big stopping spot is we can't get the BRT because the state has imposed, they continue to impose more and more restrictions. One of the restrictions they imposed this last year is that they can't use current lanes. You can't repurpose a lane because they didn't like the Sunrunner. So they simply said you can't repurpose a lane. So this is kind of a way to get around that. FDOT refuses to fund, or cannot, I guess it's in their mandate, fund operations costs. So how do we, and we have people complaining about traffic. The fastest way we can improve traffic is to get people off the road. I know this can be controversial, so I'm just simply asking you to consider it. But I would really like to try making the Route 1 fare-free, see how we can make it, because FDOT can't even give us the money to try because it's a current system. So by doing this, we can see how we can go forward, because ultimately we're going to have to step up and fund some of it because the county's simply not going to do it. It doesn't have to be county. It's not going out into the county. We're sticking to the city. But ultimately, we're going to have to start talking as a city about how we fund transit going forward, because it's not going to be done by the county. If we actually want to move people, because we aren't expanding roads in this city. We just simply aren't. We get more cars, more people. If we don't look for, it's a fool's errand to not look at another possible way to do it. And so I'm simply going to ask that this is something that it's considered. I have other things to talk about with police and fire during number 2, but that is where I'm going to leave it. I would really love to fund Route 1 fare-free for 1 year only, see how it goes, and...
If I could, just augment that. I believe the specific number is a little shy of $1 million for fare-free. And while it isn't our mandate, I would be remiss not to mention that our mobility plan plans for and depends on better transit service as a way of managing congestion and as a way of reducing vehicle miles traveled. So that latter goal, reducing vehicle miles traveled, the known strategies for that are better development, investing in walking and biking, and investing in transit. So it does align with cities' mobility goals, should that be the consideration.
And that's the other thing, and I will try to get you all a copy of this study that the TPO just did, which was phenomenal. They were able to, well, it wasn't a study, it was a public survey. And what they did was they were able to get into the city's respondents. The city respondents, by and large, well, first of all the county wanted transportation. That was their number 1, which was very interesting. But the city, not only, the people who answered that survey wanted to tax themselves for more transit. It was really interesting. So I'll have Kelly pass the survey on to you, and then give you Dr. Wong's information if you'd like to ask him some more questions. But basically what we're hearing from the public is they really want transit, and how do we do it?
I think it's an interesting concept, seeing how the streetcar worked, that it went from fares to free of fares for the last several years due to grants. And we've seen, and I'm on the board there, a huge spike in ridership. People love the streetcar, but if we were to go back to some type of fare with the streetcar, it could be $2.50 each way, or whatever it was before. It could be $1, it could be 50 cents. People have already put it in their mind, plus all the new people that have moved, especially down with this area, of using the streetcar. They like it. They see the convenience of it, and they say it's cheaper than parking and driving. They'll continue using it. But I think this concept, I know that, Hart is county, and then it's more complicated than that, but it would encourage people, hey, if you haven't used the bus, it's free for now. Use it, ride it. They'll get used to it psychologically. I think it would work, and I think it's a great idea. So,
can I just add a point to that? The streetcar ends at Whiting. That is where Route 1 starts.
Then it's a perfect, not want to say last mile connector, but it's a more seamless connection. Councilmember Miranda, Councilmember Carl.
If I could reflect real quick, because you made a good point. It's a good complement. Route 1 is a good complement to the streetcar. Route 1 is also a connector to USF, where, as we all know, there's going to be a new stadium. So that area does need additional attention, and then all of the areas in between. But this is one of many routes. It is a critical route, though. It's also Hart's most successful route, I believe.
All right. Councilmember Miranda Carlson Vieira.
Thank you. Thank you all for your conversation regarding the streetcar, buses, and so forth and so on. I can only tell you historically from 74 to present. Prior to 74, we had a fantastic bus line called City of Tampa Transit. It was right here in Cleveland where there was their service area and garage to fix the buses and so forth and so on. It had a pretty good ridership. Right in the bottom of these same steps on the same hallway in the first floor, Harry Orr was coming down the steps and he told me, "You'd be an idiot to take one money in federal dollars because you're going to be sending somebody from here to Waimama for a quarter. And you can't survive. You will fall within your own means." And he was right. I hate to say that. However, before I start changing my vote for monies to being shifted around to help, I got to know what the ridership was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and now compared to what the revenues were and that we were giving to that. I want to know exactly what it is. Because when you talk about the streetcar was designed for many reasons. One of them was ridership from point A to point B. I think it was built in the 90s for $11 million. You have to check that figure because I can worry my
Late
memory.
90s, yeah.
And I think it was done with a lot of public money, but a lot of money from other interests that had businesses along those corridors and an electric company called TICO that paid portion of it. It was made to help develop the development we have now on the east of us, and the city was called Ybor City further east of us because they were dying. And it certainly did that. However, since it was free, the ridership is going on. So would be lunches at the restaurant if they were free, but they're not. And these are the problems that we have to understand as public officials. Before I vote one way or the other, I have to know what the numbers are, financially what it costs, and what is the expectation, and what happens if we do not meet those expectations. The only way we're going to solve this is by saying we can't do it this way anymore. The only system that's going to work is nothing more in the street. It's got to be by rail around us and above us. If not, like the airport does, it will not work. Publics are used, the people now, good citizens are used to moving somewhere quickly. They don't want to stop at every stoplight. They don't want to do this. It wastes energy, it creates the atmosphere. It helps us kill ourselves more because of the environment. Thank you all very much.
Councilman Carlson.
This is a bigger conversation for another day, I think, and I think we have Hart coming in at some point to talk to us. As I understand it, and Charlie, you tell me if I'm wrong, but as I understand from talking to people at the time, until the 80s, city controlled transit and housing, and then the city asked for the state to spin the two off to create the housing authority and Hart, and then that the city's ad valorem tax was reduced, and those ad valorem rights were moved to those two other entities.
I don't remember all that, but more likely.
And the idea is that there would be more autonomy, there would be cleaner decisions made around that. And so that's why until we pushed the last few years, the city didn't really spend any money on housing, and we put some in there. What we found, though, is that in the size of the problem of transportation and housing, we can't possibly fill it. I think just to repair the potholes is like $2 billion because of lack of fixing them in the last few years. I can tell you that the constituents I talk to probably most of them want transit, but they really want the potholes fixed. And because some of the roads have just been quickly paved over or just potholes filled, when the rain came, it popped them all back up again. And we've got like 10 times more problems. And going through and filling potholes isn't going to fix the problem long term. We need to fix them. Once we fix the roads, I think people will come forward and be more supportive of it. But the point I was making, maybe we could discuss this when Hart comes. I saw in March or so when Hart talked about increasing its ad valorem tax. I think you need to get each of the member governments and maybe the public to vote on it or something. No, didn't happen. It can't happen. But the city, unless a new tax is passed, the city has no money to do any of this. We can't afford to fill potholes. We can't afford to hire police. I'm okay if we do something temporary, like for a 6-month period or a year, but none of these projects should look for long-term funding because we can't afford it. We can't afford the basic services. There are mid-level managers who I hear haven't gotten raises in maybe more than 10 years. And, if we're going to keep the good people and move forward, if we're going to protect the public with public safety, and if we're going to fix potholes, we've got to figure out how to use our existing money better.
And I was next in line. On this, I'm supportive of the discussion and the idea. I salute Councilwoman Hurtak. I think that's great. A lot of times you got to think outside of the box, and then thinking outside of the box becomes a new norm. I remember if you would have asked us who were on council in 2017 and 18, let's spend $10 million of general revenue money on affordable housing, you'd go, really? Let's talk about that. So a lot of times you got to come forward and say, hey, I have a new idea, I have a new way of doing things, and you kind of break through a mold. Vic, part of what you said about HART, looking at just funding the basics now, premium transit, and not looking at something like premium transit, it's not because of a lack of desire. Obviously, HART is HART. It's because of money, unfortunately. And that's something where this could help move us forward, maybe temporarily, maybe not. So I think it's something worth discussing. There's a lot of different things that we could look at when it comes to transportation in the city of Tampa. And like I've said before, we have, I don't know what amount it's going to be coming, hopefully in the next year or so, a whole lot of money for street repaving. From the all for transportation tax. Whenever that money, you first have the sales tax refunds, and then some of it's going to go back to the local governments. So hopefully we can take care of some of that, a lot of that with those funds. But moving forward in critical areas where you do have high ridership, and when we talk about high ridership, let's talk about what that is. That's moms, that's dads, that's hardworking people who are looking to go to work at Walmart, at Publix, at Target, going to meet their sick or dying relative, going to take care of their mom, their dad, going to drop off their kid at school, whatever it could be. That's the ridership we're talking about. So that's why I think this is a discussion that's really worth having, because this motion by Councilwoman Hurtak, or no, it's not a motion. The reason I want to discuss it is it's something that could help move working families forward in their most critical need. That's what, when I think about ridership, that's what ridership is. So, I'm very passionate about HART and the mission that they do. And if we can help move it forward somehow, whether it's premium transit or something else, like I know in the CRA, we're looking at having the CRA and CRA areas help out HART as well. Because HART is, folks are right. This is part of a larger discussion. But it's one that I'm very supportive of having. So there you go.
I'd like to provide just a shameless plug for our parking team. So a couple of years back, the HART CFO reached out to us saying that we'd like to increase service, but that will require an increase to our streetcar budget. And we did. We got creative with our team and increased the streetcar budget by $350,000 from the parking enterprise, which is why we have the 12-minute service today. So we have a history of supporting HART and its objectives where they align. But also to Councilman Carlson's point, when we just look at the mandate or mandated services in front of us, they themselves are so severely underfunded that we have to balance all objectives.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I really appreciate people's comments, and I do understand that this is a challenge for everyone. Councilman Miranda, fixed rail is what everyone wants. It is 100% what everyone wants. But here's the thing. It's not $1 million. It's like $100 million. And the other thing people don't think about fixed rail, they're like, I want to ride fixed rail, because they think they're going to be able to walk a block or two from their house and get on fixed rail. And that is not the way it's going to work. Fixed rail is going to be the spine, but then you're going to have buses that take people to their neighborhoods from the fixed rail. So my goal in this is a pilot project to encourage Tampaños to ride the bus. They don't do it. When I talk to folks, they don't know how. That's the barrier that the streetcar used to be. You had to pay to get on. So the idea is to get people to give it a try. If you live a mile away from Route 1, you can come and park on a neighborhood street, hop on the 1, get to either USF or downtown. You can use what we already have. Again, it's simply a pilot. It's something I'd like to try. and really get people to say, oh, wow, this is cool. Even if we get people to go downtown to Curtis Hickson when there's an event, there's a hard time with people finding parking. If they know they can get to the Route 1 for free, they can park up by in the Sulphur Springs area and drive and take the bus down, or they can stay up at USF. Wherever they are, people can park their cars in already available spaces, hop on the 1 and get down, and not have to pay the parking fee, not having to find things. Again, we're just stuck. There's no other way to do it than to give it a try. So I really appreciate people's willingness. I can simply, if folks would like, I can simply ask Hart to come on September 3rd, our first budget evening meeting, and discuss it. Is that something that would work for people in terms of?
If I may, I guess I can. Sure. Yeah. So for having Hart come, what are we at? We're in August 19th. Yeah, I would, just for their time, since it's going to be a long meeting, I'd like it to be like time limited at a time certain for them, et cetera, just out of respect for their time. And we can explore this between now and then. As you can tell in my remarks, I'm very sympathetic. Yeah. But yeah,
well, I'm just thinking, I mean, either I'll make the motion now and we can see where it goes, or I can have them, Councilman Miranda wanted more information, and I thought maybe that would be a way to get more information. I'm sure Hart would come and speak to it. So what's the pleasure of council?
I'll second it.
So I mean, I won't make the motion to ask them to come. I'll just simply ask. Sure. So I'll ask if they could be first on the agenda on the 3rd.
Second.
And Chair, just because this is a budget discussion, and I would like to provide another opportunity, we have committed earlier this year to Hart that should they win a state grant that they applied for, and this is right along Route 1 itself, that we would match $600,000 for 3 years, so $1.8 million, to that grant to basically run a circulator service that goes north of Whiting along the future streetcar extension and into Ybor as well. Those are funds that could be reallocated without impacting this year's budget, should that be the direction that council wants to proceed with.
Okay, well, I appreciate, I will work with you on that then, to find exactly where to find the funding for that.
So you have a motion?
I was simply just gonna ask Hart to come and explain, and then by the 3rd, I'll have a motion for where to find the money, and more specific, I'll have options of what's gonna cost what.
Okay. So no formal motion, just.
I won't make the formal motion because folks have asked for more information, and I would like to respect that.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a Hart committee meeting, speaking of Hart, and I'll be right back. I'm gonna go chime in on my meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Anything else? If not, I'm gonna open it up to public comment on item 1. This is the fiscal year 2025 operating budget. If you'd like to speak, come on up. You'll have 3 minutes.
Rock, paper, paper.
All right, and sir, you have some handouts. If you want to put them on the overhead, we'll display them.
I'll get it figured out, yes, sir.
Please state your name.
My name is Robert Barrow. I'm a 30-year resident of Tampa. All but 2 of them were spent here in Tampa, redeployed out to Camp Pendleton, California, but I'm retired, live in the community. Daughter went to Plant, Gorey Wilson, University of Florida. I consider myself a local guy now. I'm here to talk about roads, which I've heard several committee members bring up. And just recently, I live in South Tampa, just off of Bayshore, south of Gandy, north of Interbay. And over the last several years, I've made calls into the city reporting potholes and repairs and whatnot, and I never got a call back. And sometimes it got repaired, sometimes it didn't. And then about a year ago, actually 1 year and 2 days ago, there was some paving equipment that was placed in my neighborhood down at the apex of Interbay and Tyson. And I'm like, finally, they're going to address Bayshore from Gandy to Interbay. And I left for a 3-day trip to Pennsylvania, and I came back and made a left on Tyson, the street I live on, and it was milled, and Crescent was milled, and Nichols was milled, Interbay was milled, and Lipscomb was milled. A total of 9,549 feet of milled road in that neighborhood. In the section of Bayshore that I'm talking about, from Gandy to Interbay, is 3,200 feet. So I don't know, and I sent a note to Commissioner Carlson. I said, what the hell is going on? My street was fine. I thought for sure this was going to be mill and pave Bayshore, not Tyson, Interbay, and Crescent. And by the way, they look great now. Thank you very much. But the other effect is that the outgoing traffic from MacDill Air Force Base now makes a right on Interbay, an immediate left on Crescent, and cuts all the way down as far as they can, and then they bump back out onto Bayshore. There are roughly 1,400 to 1,500 vehicles that transit that section of Bayshore, and everybody here says, oh, thank you for your service, we support our military. Really? Go down there and look at the roads down there. And I've heard numbers of $5 billion that the retired and active community puts into the local economy. And this is the best we can do? And by the way, that's not a road. Taking pavement, asphalt, and I do some consulting work with several large surety companies in the state of Florida, working road and highway, have friends on the Florida Transportation Builders Association up in Tallahassee. And it just goes on, but what I want to show you, am I getting up on my time probably already?
Your time is up, sir.
So this is, I defy you to find a 5-foot section on that piece of road I'm talking about that doesn't look like, can you see this?
Yes, sir.
It's
Thank you
coming up?
very much.
That doesn't look like that.
Thank you, sir.
And it's the entire roadway.
Thank you, sir.
And so let me tell you what's going on.
The
All
time
those
is up,
cracks.
sir. The time is up. It's 3 minutes per person.
That was time's up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can you submit those to us so we can take a look at it? We can see them here on the screen.
I'll leave these with you or whomever.
Yeah, the gentleman here.
But I will come back for an answer about, tell me how 9,500 feet of road was paved that didn't, in my estimate, as a guy that's in that business, did not need to be paved, ended up getting paved, and Bayshore was neglected.
Thank you very much, sir.
And the cost, $350,000 to mill it, pave it, etc.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am, please state your name.
3 minutes.
Good morning, Dana Lazarus, 33605. It's too bad Gwen had to leave. She's my rep. But I'm here today to advocate for the thing our city lacks the most, the bus. I'm here as a board member of the grassroots transportation advocacy organization, the Sunshine Citizens, as a member of the Transportation Planning Organization Citizens Advisory Committee since 2017, as a co-founder of the public transit-focused discussion group Transit Now Tampa Bay, as a homeowner in historic North Ybor, and an AICP certified urban planner specializing in sustainable transportation and community development. Thank you, Vic and Lynn, Guido, Luis, for the $1.5 million discussion for Fare Free on Route 1. I'm here to ask that you consider allocating $10 million to HART's budget. We do need to discuss a recurring allocation. It is time for the City of Tampa to step up and provide a recurring funding source for our public transit system. For too long, we have needed more buses, better frequency, safer bus stops, connected and expanded routes to pre-mission max days at a minimum, and the projects we've been waiting for. HART has been doing incredible things on a shoestring budget, but it's not enough. And from what I've determined from nearly 10 years of research, the most important thing it lacks is recurring capital and operational funding, which again, FDOT cannot provide. While the county and voting citizens have been called on to boost funding for our bus service, the City of Tampa itself has not stepped up to provide a recurring funding source for the general bus service since the creation of HART in the 1970s. So why am I here asking for this today? I was hired in 2021 to write our region's transportation planning organization's non-discrimination and equity plan, particularly to design and carry out the public engagement process for that plan. By identifying our most underserved neighborhoods in the community and doing street outreach, we managed to oversample underserved groups, including low-income people of color, people with disabilities, and members of the LGBTQ community. We went to Tampa Heights, Sulphur Springs, Carver City, Lincoln Gardens, Inner Bay, and more. And in response to the question, a lack of access to which community element has had the greatest negative impact on your quality of life, underserved demographic groups overwhelmingly named housing, employment, and transportation as their top 3 issues. Digging deeper, the #1 mode that people talked about was the HART bus. Many people who participated in the engagement process rely on the bus for transportation. Transit-dependent people with children found the timing and frequency of the bus to be particularly challenging. Caretakers are often women. The bus's frequency and timing issues disproportionately impact women and mothers. Tampa used to be the model of citywide public transportation. We can be that again. Local government contributions to the bus system are the key to unlocking the greatness of our city. 45 of the 50 largest metro areas in the nation have secured some sort of dedicated funding from their local governments to fund their transit agencies. So please provide funds to our existing bus system at $10 million. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Good morning. Please say
Good
your name.
morning, Humera Afzal. In order to be a thriving city for everyone, Tampa needs public transit. It's a necessity, not a luxury. Providing public transit should be part of the city's mandate. City Council has the power to make that happen. You are currently making decisions for use of funds within the city's largest budget in history. I am here, like Dana, to ask that you allocate $10 million from the city's billion-dollar budget for HART. For too long, the people of Tampa have desperately needed more buses, higher stop frequency, and expanded routes that more efficiently connect people to the places they need to go. For decades, residents have been clamoring for all of the above, yet the city of Tampa has not stepped up to provide local funds since like the 70s. Meanwhile, the cost of living in Tampa has skyrocketed and our roads become increasingly jammed with traffic. Roads wouldn't be in such bad shape if we weren't car dependent. You can make a meaningful step towards making Tampa both more affordable and more livable for everyone by committing city funds for public transit. The county certainly isn't going to do it. It's up to you. HART has performed amazingly well considering its incredibly meager budget that is about half the funding level of our peer communities. But ridership and demand are way up, and HART is only one of 7 public transit agencies nationwide that have managed to reach pre-COVID ridership levels. Unfortunately, HART riders are suffering due to the decrease in both routes and the drastically decreased frequency of service. Routes that used to run every 30 minutes now run only once per hour. Imagining planning your day around that. Even with this very infrequent service, ridership is still up. Studies have also shown that HART is very effective despite it being incredibly underfunded. We can trust HART with our tax dollars. HART has mastered financial discipline. They just don't have enough money. Imagine what HART could achieve with another $10 million a year from the city of Tampa. Here's a short list of some of the ways it would improve your local constituents' lives. Tampa would be more affordable for many people who struggle to pay for housing and a car or two to get to work and get around. It'd probably be about $500 a month saved per household in car payments, gas, insurance, maintenance. People who can't drive or can't afford a car would have access to far more things, like access to better jobs. People who already rely on HART buses to get to work would have better routes and would have hours saved in their day to spend time on other things like spending time with their children. All that Tampa has to offer would become more available to everyone, including people who cannot drive. We have many older residents and people with disabilities who lack independence because they have to rely on friends and relatives to drive them. How would you get around if suddenly you were unable to drive? It can happen to anyone at any time. I guess that's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Stephanie Pointer, can I have an extra minute? You guys have went down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and I can talk about transportation, housing. There's like 60 different things that you guys have discussed. May I have an extra minute, please?
We have a motion. We have a second.
Thank you.
Second from Councilman Cross, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I want to start out, my name's Stephanie Pointer. I want to start out by mentioning the CLT. It's my understanding there's 25 to 30 properties already owned by the city of Tampa that could be moved into that CLT as soon as it's up and running. But we need some staff to finish the work. It's my understanding that that project is about 75% complete. The Citizens Budget Review Committee voted against the parking, whatever it is, for downtown, the $12 million they want to spend on that, because nobody feels like that downtown needs more money for parking, when it's my understanding that they're over-parked by like 2/3. TFR, okay, so we spent like a long time this morning talking about TPD and what they need, and yet the same time that that project started, TFR was supposed to have gotten a fire station, yet here we are again. We have no fire station. We haven't broken ground. We can't figure out how to get it done. They've got 793 people budgeted for, but only got about 750. What are we doing to increase our fire departments? Because we keep building bigger and bigger buildings, and you know it's dangerous, and we need more people. So I'm just saying, we didn't get any of the 30 that were promised last year. The budget thing just wears me out. It's like Groundhog Day. I want to point out something to you. Last year, we talked about this position, and I could have sworn this position right here was that council said, no, really, do we really need a energy efficiency and carbon analyst? Well, I started going through the salaries, because you know I like to look at the individual stuff, and this is the only one that's absolutely outrageous. It is a 49% increase in salaries. 49% from last year, and a position that we asked questions about, and I really don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at the hearings. And if I could remember correctly, I think there were some folks on council that didn't really like this position to start with and couldn't figure out what that job was. I've never seen this person. I have no idea who they are. But it's in Chief Bennett's department. But I'll tell you why I went looking in Chief Bennett's department this morning. Because when I started looking at the stormwater assessment, okay, so this is the stormwater assessment page. And when I started looking at it, I was like, okay, we got $15.5 million. I'm not sure why it's in licensing and permits, but whatever. So I start looking at, wait, we're spending $12.9 million of that stormwater assessment fund money on people, which is fine. But, I mean, if we're paying an assessment, me as a citizen, and I'm paying an assessment, I would think that that's going to our stormwater projects. And so I look down here in these capital projects, and it's very, very small. But then when I pull out the stormwater engineering project, we're up to like $200 million. I'm like, holy crap. But what got me even more interested was I went back to that $12 million, $12.9 million in salary. But then when I pulled those numbers that look like, the pages look like this, but I didn't print it out, okay? When I pulled that up, this number for stormwater is only $8.4 million. So what did we do with the other 12-ish, with the other $4 million? So that's why I went to Chief Bennett's budget, because I was like, maybe that's benefits. Well, I looked at the benefits, and according to the stormwater salary budget, we're paying like an additional $43,000. Maybe that's benefits. I don't know. So I go and I dig around, and Chief Bennett's office has $107,000 rough-ish in benefits money coming out of there, which is $18,000. So how is it that we've got this big discrepancy? And I'm sorry, I'm not an accountant, nor do I want to play one at City Council, but I keep wondering why the numbers don't add up. Because every number person I've ever met my whole life wants everything to add up, but none of them add up here.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment. We'll go to item number 2, the last item of the agenda. Councilmember Vieira, this was your motion. Do you want to set it up, or do you have?
I'll go after Chief Tripp, or whoever is speaking.
All right, Chief.
Is there?
No. All right, Chief Tripp, if you want to kick it off regarding Tampa Fire Rescue.
Good morning, Council. Barbara Tripp, Fire Chief for Tampa Fire Rescue. Actually, I didn't give a presentation or anything, everything isn't in budget, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Okay, well, then I guess I will speak if
Go
I
ahead,
may.
sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so, couple of things with Tampa Fire Rescue. You know, when I look at, you know, we have 2.5 years, about 1,000 days or so before we're out of here. At least some of us who are not gonna run for reelection or whatever it may be. And when I look at the things that are needed to be done for fire rescue over the next few years, I think there's first, fleet maintenance, things that I think can get done in the next 2.5 years. The moving of fleet maintenance out of Station 9 to wherever it's gonna be. I had sent a memo, Chief, where I talked about moving, I think I had a motion that I made some time ago to talk about real estate acquisition in early October, to move it to September so that we can have that information with us when we, for purposes of the budget. But I think that we can do fleet maintenance and get everything done in the next 2.5 years. Chief, let me ask you, I know you're not a real estate person, et cetera, you gotta defer to them in that. Do you think that is a goal that can be accomplished by the time that Mayor Castro leaves office?
Honestly, I would like for it to happen. I've been pushing for this for the last couple of years just to find some property. I'm looking for at least minimum 5 acres, if not more. We actually need about 7, but I'll settle for 5. And I've had real estate look around, and they've been looking. We've come up zero on a couple of properties. You know, we had some positive, and then of course, with certain things happen legally wise, we wasn't able to follow through. So currently, I'm hoping and praying. We have a meeting next week with real estate to see about this one area of property that we're looking into.
Great.
So I would like for it to happen, yes. I would like for it to happen before I leave too.
Yeah, no, and I know your sentiments, obviously, but you know, my view is that we can get this thing done in the next 2.5 years, and that's why I'm making that motion, if we can make motions today, or I'll make it on Thursday if need be, to push that forward a couple of weeks so we can have that information for us on the budget. The next one is Station 24, which thank goodness we already have the property for, right?
Yes.
And everything. When do you think, we already have the property, we can look at a groundbreaking for the construction of Station 24 in North Tampa?
I wish it could be tomorrow, but unfortunately, we just finished the CCNA part of it, and once again, this is another piece of property as far as the station that I've been pushing, trying to move forward. I don't have a tentative date yet. Like I know with CAD, and I'm quite sure Mr.
Mutterback is coming up.
Mutterback can kind of add to it. Of course, all the details that's needed.
Richard Mutterback, Contract Administration. As far as the date, we don't have a date yet, but the RFQs already went through and we've already selected. So that first step, we've selected a firm. Now, and these are just typical numbers, 12 to 18 months for design and permitting, and then 1 to 2 years for construction, depending on what it is.
And my question is, correct me if I'm wrong, last year did we fund design for this last year? For Station 24?
Correct, and we use those designs in the selection process. That's what we just.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm asking as a layperson, why the delay between last year when we funded that to right now? In other words, why are things taking the time that they're taking? Just because people are going to ask that.
Oh, sorry, I apologize. I misspoke. I'm mixing projects now.
You're fine. You're fine.
So no, the delay is just in getting the package prepared to go out, getting that design criteria package prepared based off of information provided, that interview process with the department, and that's so that we have as specific details in that scope of the project when we go out to RFQ.
And let me ask you, with the information that you have, do you think this is a project, Station 24, that we can have groundbreaking in the next year?
No.
How long would that take, roughly?
Because like I said, typical 12 to 18 months for design and permitting.
Okay, so next year and a half?
Yes, it's possible. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and the third thing I'm also looking at, and we're not even having a discussion on it, but we need to, is something for downtown Tampa. I'd like to see some sort of a feasibility study or something where we can get fleet maintenance done by the time we're out of here. We can get Station 24 done by the time that we're out of here. And we have at least laid the seeds or the foundation for something in downtown Tampa. There's been different discussions. Do we expand one? Do Do we put a medical-only facility in Channelside area? Again, I'm not a TFR expert. I'm not a fire expert. I would obviously defer to y'all in that regard, but those are the things that I'd really, really like to do. We're a growing city, as you know, and in my opinion, when I say we're falling behind not because of you or anybody in office or anybody here, just by virtue of population growth. That again, over the last 15 years, we've had about a 25% increase in population here in the city of Tampa. And we look at throughout all of our city, we have a new city within a city in downtown Tampa. West Tampa continues to grow. South Tampa is booming and growing. New Tampa continues to have challenges. North Tampa, new and North Tampa, when you include Station 24, that'll be the 4th station for New and North Tampa in the last 6 years because of that vast population growth. So for me, that's a big issue, obviously. And again, I go back to the idea of revenue. That's why a year ago, I proposed the 0.3 millage increase, which would have chopped down to mayor's tax, which I opposed by 70%, and focused at 110% on police officers and firefighters. Why is that? Because we need those funds. We need those funds on something that we're running behind on so we can accelerate this. So again, for me, I'd like to see these things done obviously as soon as possible, And that's why I'm going to be motioning to have that report on the status of real estate acquisition done, whatever my memo said, sometime in mid-September. So are we allowed to make motions today?
Yeah.
And I'll make them at the end because I don't want to. And that's it for now. Thank you, ma'am.
We have roughly 32 months before the end of this term, so that's the timeline. And, the gentleman said about 18 months there, 12 to 18 months, so it can fit. Yes, ma'am.
I guess I have a question for Mr. Mutterback first, and don't go anywhere, Chief Tripp, because I have some more for you. Following up upon what Councilmember Vieira said, we put the funding in for design of 24 in last year's budget, but you're telling us the design hasn't even started.
Correct.
What happened in the last 12 months?
We prepared we got everything prepared to go out to public for the RFQ. We were preparing that internally, that design criteria package, going back and forth. And that process starts with our architects interviewing the fire department and incorporating facilities and other departments and coming up with that scope and design criteria package.
So what you're telling us is it takes 12 months to develop a scope, by and large.
No, ma'am. I don't know the specifics as far as what delayed getting it out to RFQ. I don't have that answer.
Okay, but generally speaking, how long does it take?
It could take. It could take 2, 3, 4 months, if not more, depending on the responsiveness back and forth of all the different departments and divisions within those departments that we're talking to.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Back to Chief Tripp. There's been a lot of question about firefighters and the number we have and the number we're allocated. Can you tell me right now on the street how many actual firefighters we have?
Sworn, I want to say probably about 150, 160-ish. We're in the process of hiring some additional firefighters. We're going through the process now, so I'm hoping to add 20 more.
You mean 750?
I'm sorry.
I was going to say.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so
okay.
Probably about, I can get the actual number, but I want to say probably about 750, 760, give or take. I know we have about 39 open positions.
Okay, so we have 39.
From the 793 that we're allotted.
Oh, so that was my next question. We're allotted 793 for 2024.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the allocation for 2025?
Well, we put in for a SAFER grant, which is the assist with personnel, which is we put in for 18 additional firefighters positions. And that's going to assist with the additional resources I'm trying to add because of the growth. And like I said, it's taken time to build stations. So what I'm trying to do, as I stated previously, we have about 5 stations that currently don't have transport units. So I go back to my numbers, and it goes back to the master plan and the need analysis that we had completed in '21. And so this administration is working off that need analysis and the recommendations, which is showing. And the point was we need to add more resources. So by that, I purchased 10 rescue cars at one time. I have another 5 on. These going to be additional units to assist with the transport. The only thing we don't have, well, to assist with the numbers and the call volumes, but we don't have no place to put them, but we're going to put them in current stations now because, of course, it's taking time to build stations.
Okay, so then you currently have 750 people. In 2024, you had an allocation of 793. So you're telling me that the 2025 allocation is about 811?
793 plus 18.
Yeah,
If we get that, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, that was
okay.
my back of the napkin math.
Okay.
Is 811. My question then, I guess, to Chief Bennett would be similar to the way that we said that we were going to hire those 30 police officers last year, whether or not we got the SAFER grant. I thought we had done the same thing for TPD or for TFR, but is there a guarantee that regardless of whether or not we get this grant, we'll get those 18 positions, similar to what happened last year with the police?
So if I'm hearing the question, John Bennett, Chief of Staff, I'm hearing the question right, is saying if we don't have the SAFER grant, is the city still in a position to fund 18 more positions?
Yes.
And I would defer to Chief Tripp, but I think, and also the CFO, but I think we are not in a position to get those without the grant.
Okay, thank you. Then, so what I hear you saying is that you have 5 cars that are coming that you're looking to put in 5 different stations.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'm going to go back to what you said earlier, something about having 10 rescue cars on order?
No, I ordered them because
Okay.
once again, we had a lot that was outdated, and of course, we was adding more resources. So I'm gonna say the budget of 21, 22, I ordered 10 additional rescue cars to replace the outdated ones we had, as well as to add those additional resources.
Have they come?
So 10 of them has come, and we have 5 more on order. So
Okay.
my goal is to try to put those cars, I'm hoping we get the SAFER grant, so we can add the additional personnel to those units to be able to put into those stations that don't have transport units.
Okay, so the 10 were simply to replace the old ones.
Replace and add, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
But the 5 on order are to help expand.
The additional, yes.
Okay, and where are we in the acquisition?
So the 10 that's come in already, they're not on the streets yet. They're going through that pre-DI, that pre-delivery inspections that they're doing.
But we have them.
But we have them.
Okay.
And we have 3 more that came from fiscal year 21 because of the manufacturers and the delay that should be here in October. And then the other 2 will be next year that'll be coming in.
Okay, and so following that, how many are you ordering this year?
For fiscal year 25. 25,
Because
yes.
I'm assuming it's similar, you just
So,
order every
yes.
year?
So I'm doing a replacement plan internally
Mm-hmm.
to replace a lot of those outdated. So it depends on how much we get in the budget. I did ask for additional funding in the budget because we was getting I believe 2 million with the CIP. So I did ask for additional funding for the units, rescue cars, engines, and trucks, because right now the cost of it, it costs right about 2.4 million for a truck.
For a fire engine?
A fire truck, the one with the ladder.
Okay, a ladder truck,
And so
okay.
the engines are running right at $1 million, and the rescue cars are running a little bit over 4.
Okay, so with the 2 million, we could get 1 engine and 2 rescue cars.
Right, with the 2 million, but I need to order a truck because my truck is expired. The reserve date is coming up. So that's why I asked for an additional 3 to help replace that.
Okay, and so Mr. O'Hara, were we able to have that additional 3 million in the budget for fire? I'm sorry, you're gonna have to come up to the mic.
I'm just looking up concurrent with Fire Chief. I'm showing $5.4 million to replace fire vehicles.
Okay.
Does that accommodate your three? I
That's-
thought it did.
Okay, I'm just double checking
Yes,
because
understood.
I know she knows, but you're the,
I
guru
tried,
of
thank
it
you.
all. Yeah, so, okay, great, thank you. So that's good news, we're able to do that. The other thing, Mr. O'Hara, before you go, the only other, no, I had several conversations about this with the union and the fire chief about, right now, we only have $400,000 in the CIP for fire station improvements this year.
I'd have to look. I
Okay,
don't know that.
well, it does, it shows
Oh, okay.
400,000, but it has, 12 million, 11 million from previous
Yeah,
years.
Okay, copy.
And I just wanted to double check right here that 12 million, the millions that we had allocated in prior years but have not used yet, is that money still there?
Yes, and I'll double check, just want to make sure I'm dead on, but if it's indicated in the reports as a remaining balance, it's there.
Okay, so a lot of this is for Station 24 and for Fleet and Supply, which we haven't spent the money. But we just wanted to double check that the money is still there, waiting to be used. Thank you for that. And Chief Tripp, on that, we only have 400,000 for these station improvements this year. What improvements do we need at the older fire stations, and do you need more than 400,000 to do that?
Yes, definitely. So, as I've been stating, these stations are outdated, 65 years old, and they really don't accommodate the additional resources we put in. So, for some of the stations, we've went in and done some remodeling to the bathrooms and everything. But I'm gonna use Station 9 for an example. You got 3 units running out of 2-bay doors, and of course, I know we're in process or in the progress of trying to expand that over the time. But for a lot of the stations that are really outdated or just built in 58, I think we need to go in and remodel them and bring them up to codes and stuff, and just to make sure the firefighters are living in decent, facilities. And with that, honestly, I don't know. I know the price has went up when it comes to concrete, and as far as labor for remodeling stations and stuff like that. We did Station 25, and of course, we spent right at $1 million to remodel that station. So I don't know if it's gonna cost right at $1 million per station to remodel. But the only challenges with that as well too, and me and Ms. Colina's been talking about it, at some of the seminars I've been attending, they have these portable fire stations that would be good to put, because right now I know you guys got some complaints from previous firefighters of the condition while they was doing work in the fire stations, as far as being exposed to certain things. So it's a lot of different technology out there that we probably can, invest in some portable fire stations, till we get through, building all the stations. Once we purchase it, we can move it from station to station, so the individuals will be somewhere, comfortable and not being exposed to some of the constructions that's going on. So I've just been looking at a lot of different things to try to, see how we can improve a lot of the fire stations.
That's actually a great question. Ms. Colina, so you've been working with her on this then, the fire stations, the possible
Absolutely.
of a portable, how does that work in Florida?
So we're actually going to be meeting with that vendor here soon. It was an idea that Chief Tripp brought back from a convention. And so we're gonna see if that's gonna work. But I wanna just clarify, we've asked for a lot more than the 400,000 that you're referring to. You might be looking just at fire's budget.
Yes.
But in facilities, our logistics one, we've asked for a lot of money. We've asked for, as Chief Tripp mentioned, overhead door replacement.
Yes.
We've asked for HVAC systems. We've asked for driveway apron repairs and a lot of other remodelings. I mean, excuse me, from FY '21 through FY '23 November timeframe, we had invested $7 million in fire stations citywide. I've told you before, but it warrants saying again, we invested over $80,000 in systematic deep cleaning of stations that had not occurred in decades, if ever. So we are definitely assessing each individual station, as I mentioned earlier, working closely with our customer, TFR, and laying eyes on what needs to be done. So it's a lot more than 400,000 last year.
Okay, yeah, but and I think that's where a lot of the confusion goes, like what is in facilities and what is in fire.
Yeah, and it can be confusing, but we, as I mentioned earlier, are responsible for the maintenance and repair of facilities citywide. Fire is no different. And so it can be confusing. I come to you open every time. I share with you what we're talking about, what we hope to do. Not everything is funded. Obviously, we can't fund everything. We do try. We share with you the ones that are important. And I can just tell you, I give my best to this position every day, and I'm proud of the job I've done and the job I continue to do, and proud of the way I serve my customers.
Oh, absolutely. But I guess then my question, I have looked and seen the line items for the doors and the air conditioners and the generators, all of that, and the driveway aprons. So then what would be different about the 400,000? Is that just like smaller projects that can go in each station, or is that a specific, I think that's sort of the question of, the others are more line item, but the 400 seems more vague.
And you're talking about the one specifically in Fire's budget?
Yeah, yeah.
And that would be something Chief Tripp can answer to, but I can tell you some projects are smaller, and Fire Station 1 probably would be a really good example of, she received funding in her budget, and she opted to use the JOCS program to be able to do that. So it wasn't facilities doing that contracting, and those are things that she wants to do. What I look at is, what do I need to do citywide? I need to spread my love across the city and our funding. But there may be other items that other departments want to do, and so they request those.
And if we were going to do, so would it's gonna sound weird, but would a pop-up fire station be something we could put like on any lot, or does it have to be connected to a current fire station?
So we're looking at all of that. I mean, we're, like I said, we're meeting with this. It's not something we currently have. We're looking to see what space do we need, what kind of permitting, if any, do we need, what kind of setup does it need. We don't know that answer. We're hoping to meet with this person in the next few weeks and learn. You know, it's just an idea, just like when we went to the city of St. Pete, city of Orlando, all this, we just kind of see different things, what's out there, what are best practices, and then we assess it to see if it's a viable option for us.
Are other people using these?
Yes, they are. Matter of fact, they had one actually settled down here a couple of weeks ago with the convention that they had, and I just saw it at the last convention I went to. So they come out and they set it up, and they have different pods that they can connect together depending on what your needs are.
Well, that sounds interesting. It also sounds, I don't even want to, well, I do sort of want to ask about the cost, but it sounds like you're not in that area yet if you're trying to learn about all the other parts, so we don't quite have a...
And it's pretty much, you can purchase it and it's yours to keep, you know, and basically you can just, especially if you have multiple stations that you need to do some serious remodeling and repairs on, it's pretty much yours to keep. And I think he told me the lifespan of it was like 20 years. But it's something we just, like I say, just started looking at, I mean, to try to, you know, see about helping out.
And at this point, we've obtained a quote for purchase and rental, and are prepared to talk with them about both. We're not sure if either will work for us, you know, and then we can kind of talk from there.
Okay, well, that sounds certainly like another outside-the-box consideration. We're talking about a lot of outside the box today, but that's really neat. Mr. O'Hara.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Hello, Council. Dennis O'Hara, Chief Financial Officer. To confirm that figure, it's about $11.2 million still remains.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that is basically my questions about fire, and I already asked my police question earlier. So, thanks.
Richard Mutterback, Contract Administration again. Apologize for the deer in the headlight look earlier. Got a lot of projects going on in my head. But as soon as I sat down, so as part of developing this particular design criteria package, you know, costs came up a lot. In those discussions last year, people came up here and talked about $3 million stations and $4 million, and our first figures were $15 million. So we took that as an opportunity. Actually, Adri and her team and Chief Tripp and myself, we reached out. We had meetings with Hillsborough County, who's built three in the past 5 years. They took a trip to Orlando, and I don't know where else, looking at other stations, other facilities. We reached out to our, you know, to firms and stuff. We wanted to make sure that we had a more precise and reasonable budget to bring forward, to put in that RFQ. Just like we talked about earlier with what happens with what's happened in the past. We wanted to make sure that that design criteria package was specific enough, and that RFQ represented a number that we felt confident in, that we'd be able to build that for. Thank you.
Do you want to share that number?
I don't have it with me.
Okay, no worries.
Don't worry, I'll be right back in 2 minutes.
All right, anything else? If not, we'll open it up to public comment.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And sir, for the deer in the headlights look, I get that all the time. I mean, like on legal cases, and sometimes you have so many different worlds in your mind that you're like, holy smokes. But really fast, just a couple of things. I would stress to the city that, for these projects, fleet maintenance in 24, that, we set out the bonding for them when again, the revenue source that I had proposed of 0.3, which would have been about $5 a month for the average household in Tampa, when that failed in city council, I pushed on bonding, because these are things that I know, Chief Tripp, you agree, and I see Donnie there with the local 754, I know they agree. These are things that are necessary, and you got to get them done, whether you're going to pay for it, whether you're going to bond it, whether it's going to be a hybrid, whatever it's going to be. These are things that, to me, I ask about that by the time that we leave in 2027, because these are things that need to be done as soon as possible. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but that's why I say that they're bonded. Let's get them done as soon as possible. One quick question, if I may. I forgot to ask about this, the CAD system. Where are we at with that, if I may ask?
We're actually in the process of going through the SOW, the scope of work, with the vendor. We have selected the vendor, and we're just hoping that we can start implementing before the end of the year.
Great, thank you, ma'am. And then quick question, for the folks, the personnel who'll be working at Station 24, would that then be foreseeably requested in next year's budget?
I'm sorry, say the word.
For the staff at 24, the firefighters at 24, would that then be a budget ask for next year's budget?
Well, the staff that's at Station 13 now is for 24, and that will be moved. Basically, it's going to be more of a shuffle game, because I remove resources out of Station 13 to accommodate Station 24 being there. So once that happened, then once again, that's where I'm going to look at my numbers again, because this station is going to be big enough to add additional resources as needed. So we'll just look at our numbers, but we're going to use the personnel. But like I said, I ask every year to try to get some additional personnel, and of course the Safer Grant has been a true blessing to help us out over the last couple of years.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr.
All right, anything? Yes?
Can I just do a quick follow-up before he comes up? So, actually, go ahead, Mr. Mutterback, I'll ask him.
13 to 19 million is the estimate put in that RFQ for Fire Station 24.
Okay, that's better than 24 million. I think that was on the table at one point. So then, I guess I didn't get back to this after Chief Bennett spoke, but the request, from what it sounds like, you were given 793 firefighters for 24, and then you're also only going to have 700, and we're not increasing the number of firefighters then?
If we don't get the Safer Grant, no.
Okay, thank you. So I would just challenge us, we need to find some money somewhere if we don't get that grant. Thank you.
I'm going to go to public comment. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Stephanie Pointer. This is becoming my new favorite page. I don't even need a job. So the only place on the City of Tampa employment, if you put a City of Tampa jobs, that fire comes up is for the fire marshal position. If we're short firefighters, how come we don't have an application up there for firefighters? Just saying. I mean, I'm kind of confused. All the different places I go, I see lots of fire stations that are made out of what they call pole barns with the metal buildings. I don't understand why we have to spend $5 gazillion to get something in there in order to do the job that we need. I mean, in Michigan, that's what they have. Every city they have what I call them pole barns, but they're metal buildings. And that's what their fire stations are. I mean, if they can withstand the cold and the heat there, then why can't we do something like that instead of spending 14 to 19 million, whatever. But I'm very concerned that we don't have enough firefighters in the city, and then we don't have any ads up for the firefighters. And it's funny because I really have only been looking at this because I was looking for the land use positions that I wanted to see. And Chief Bennett and I are going back and forth about that, and I finally found them. They're like different than all the others. So I would like to see some firefighter positions advertised. You can't get people to apply if they don't know we need them. Sorry. Once again, we're up here talking, we had $40 million put aside for TPD, but we still haven't broken ground on the fire department that was promised in last year's budget. Why? It's like Groundhog Day. I keep coming up here and talking about the same crap over and over and over again. Why can't we get it done? I don't understand it. By God, Hannah Street was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I have, in my entire life, I've never seen a building go up that quickly and get built that quickly. But yet, if I recall correctly, I want my own personal timeline for what happens in this city, because it seems to me like Hannah Street was approved right about the same time as this fire station that we still haven't even turned one little spoonful of dirt, not even a shovel, but a spoonful of dirt on. What in the world is the problem? Why is TFR the redheaded stepchild of this city? They can't get anything done. Chief Tripp is ordering stuff and it's not here. Chief Tripp's trying to buy buildings. She's trying to buy land. Oh, by God, we got 8 acres for a forensic lab. We've got one building over here that one floor is almost completely empty. We've got Hannah Street that's not even close to being full. Y'all go hang out there for an entire day and see how empty that building is. Why are we going to build anything else for office space? Every place else, they sold the biggest office space in the city of Tampa a couple months ago for like $20 million. It was ridiculous. But yet we spent $140 on ours.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here for public comment? All right, Councilmember Viera, did you want to make some motions?
Yeah, really quick, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had sent a memo on this. I had on October 3rd of this year, I was requesting for TFR and real estate to provide a report on the status of property acquisition for fleet maintenance in '24 for purposes of the budget, so that we're equipped with full information. I'd like to have that on September 5th, if I may.
We have a motion for Councilman Viera to move that around. Second for Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And may I, this is time sensitive, it's a commendation. We can't, well then tell you what, that's fine.
Just do the commendation, we'll do it.
I'll say, so just for transparency of council, I mean, I already motioned for this before, but Michael Hutner, who's retiring from Tampa Police Department after 25 years, we couldn't get him on the agenda on August 22nd, so, and I had to withdraw my motion because of the time, so I will be motioning, just for transparency with council, to have him have a commendation, which we'll be giving him before City Council at 315 here, East Kennedy. So again, I will be motioning for it, but I never like to do commendations without telling council.
When is that commendation going?
August 22nd, same date, just before council.
August 22nd.
This
Thursday. This coming Thursday?
Yes, sir.
So what you're doing is you're informing council that you'll be having the commendation.
It's not on the agenda. It's kind of like doing it off-site.
Yeah,
kind of thing, but
it's off-site technically.
But it
But
doesn't
no,
affect the
I
item.
say that because number one, I'm going to invite council members, but number two, since it's being done in 3 days and I'm going to be motioning for it that evening, again, no one's objecting to it. I'm not giving it
So
city
do you
council
want to just
commendation
announce it
on
again
Moss or something.
publicly so that council and the public know if you want that to be the case?
No, I mean, it's good. What I've done, I've done. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, sorry.
No, you're cool.
Councilmember Hurtak, Councilmember Miranda.
I just have a question for Chief Tripp about the fire station or the firefighter. Why aren't they on the? Why don't we have any openings on the website?
So the way it works is because whenever you get hired for these type of positions, it comes in spurts. And when I say it spans, because if we keep it open, that application will stay open up until it's time for us to hire again. Since I've been in this position, I've been hiring at least 3 times a year. So basically we open it, once we get a good selection of members, we interview them because they have to go through so many different criteria in order to get hired with Tampa. But if an individual put their application in today, they might not get called until December because we don't have that process going, because we have to do the physical with the pension, we have to do the polygraph test, the psych test, the medical exam. So we do that in combination of working with other departments. So I can't just send onesies and twosies at a time to get this certification or get this requirement completed in order to get hired. So basically, we hire in sections, and like I say, I've been doing that 3 to 4 times a year. We have
Okay, so
another
do you
process.
need more resources to be able to open it up more often?
No, but even if we open it up, if one person put in, or you have 2 people put in, now you have to go through the interview process. Through the interview process, now we got to schedule for the polygraph test, and that class might not start until, December. So that means that individual will be sitting and waiting, and a lot of times we do get people to drop out because our process takes so long. It used to take about 8 months. I've cut it down to like 3, no more than 4 months now.
Is that normal for most departments?
It varies. It all depends on, some of the requirements that we have for a firefighter, some of the departments don't have the same requirements.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of the other stipulations that kind of delay the process. But as soon as we open the application up, we interview, we go through the process and get them scheduled. So right now, the class we just interviewed in July, they're actually coming on in September.
Oh, wow, that's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. We
So then
shorten
will
everything.
the position be open again in September
We're
then?
gonna open it up again,
Okay.
actually, October, we're gonna open it up again. But like I say, it's so many other departments that we have to correspond with, HR, TPD, the hospitals for the physicals, the medical doctors for the site tests, and all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're adjourned. Motion to receive and file. A motion from Councilmember Beer, second from Councilmember Randall. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
I make a motion to approve the request to change the status of the property located at 1401 South DeSoto Avenue from